following program is an exclusive Disruption Networks production.
So you just bought your dream home, and now it's time to move. Let's face it, nobody likes to move. All the packing, unpacking, lifting, upstairs, downstairs, and broking everything, including your back. Let the professionals at EJA Moving Company take all the stress and pain out of your move. Competitively priced moving, relocation services, office moves, and complete packing and unpacking services. They work with everybody to make it simple and easy for you to move and relocate. Call EJA Moving Company at 315-335-0516. When it's time to relocate, have EJA Moving do all the work for you. Hit them up online, ejamoving.com.
Hey, Disruption Network. This is Mike Sacco, the general manager at Nye Volkswagen of Rome. If you don't know me by name, it's only because you have not received the best deal. There's only one reason to leave Utica, and that's to come see me in Rome and get the best deal on your next new, pre-owned, or certified VW. Mention that you heard this ad from Disruption Network and receive $250 off your next vehicle purchase. You'll know why our customers say, I love my Nye VW. Come see us at 5865 Rome Taberg Road in Rome, or visit us online at nyvwofrome.com.
Join us Saturday, October 13th as Disruption Network and Doughboy Barbecue presents Trip Fest 2 at the Jewish Community Center, 2310 Oneida Street in Utica. A night to pay homage to Vinny, Captain Trip Moriel. Utica icon, yo! Come pick through all Captain Trip's personal treasures, local artist display, food from Doughboy Barbecue, beer, wine, and live music. Bands include, after a 24-year hiatus, the return of Torrance, Kate Devin, The Crazy Fools, Thunderwatt, and a 315 All-Star tribute to the Grateful Dead. Tickets are $10 in advance and $15 at the door. Partial proceeds to benefit Laney's Army. Doors open at 6 o'clock. Taurus kicks it all off at 6:30. It's Trip Fest 2, Saturday, October 13th. Trip Fest 2 is sponsored by Nye Volkswagen of Rome, 92.7 FM The Drive, Priceless Inspection, Donato Appraisal Services, Dr. Scott Domenico, and Saranac Brewery.
The Property Sisters of the Mohawk Valley was born when three top producing agents with over 25 years of combined experience selling real estate joined forces to take real estate to the next level. We practice with honesty, integrity, and the knowledge to help make the buying and selling process easy and stress-free for all of our clients. We pledge to always make our clients our top priority from start to finish and even after the house is closed. We will always be a valued resource for information and assistance for our buyers and sellers. Our customers over the years have become not only past clients, but great friends. As we join hands together as the Property Sisters of the Mohawk Valley, we look forward to serving our clients and our community and making a positive difference. You can reach us at 315-601-9630 for all of your real estate needs.
The following is a presentation of Disruption Networks.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the baseline. Play ball!
Good evening, everybody. Wednesday night, 9/26/18. We're getting into crunch time here. What's going on, everybody?
What's
JP,
up,
SPG, the baseline here from Disruption Networks, Utica, New York. What's going on, baseball world?
And it's our first fall show, actually.
Yeah.
It's the first baseline episode in fall.
It went so quick.
And it went really quick. We had a good summer, man. We had a lot of fun sitting here talking baseball on Disruption Network. Just a lot of cool stuff. You know, we did the Battle of the Bats, the Night VW event a month or so ago. But yeah, it's been great. And it's not over yet. It's just now getting very, very interesting.
Interesting indeed. We don't have a clear picture going on right now of the AL or the NL completely. We know who's going to be in, at least in the AL anyway. We know who's going to be in. We don't know where they're going to play that wild card game. And in the NL, I mean, you're looking at the potential of a four-way tie in the NL. Between the Brewers, the Dodgers, the Rockies, and the Cardinals. A lot of funny stuff has to happen, but it is potential that we could see our first multiple play-in games in Major League Baseball history. We've never had two ties in the same weekend, two tiebreakers.
Things are really, really tight in the NL. In the AL, the teams are all clinched. The only thing still, I think, really up for to be decided yet is whether the Yankees will be playing at home or whether they will be going to Oakland for the one-game wild card showdown for the AL. So we'll get to a lot of the pennant race stuff later on.
It's coming.
We got a whole bunch of great stuff today.
We're winding down. We were coming here in the snow, and now we're winding down. It seems like yesterday that we had just started talking about this season, and now we're winding down. Next week or so, we're going to have to talk about all of our preseason predictions that we had and see where we rank with those, and what we talked about for the playoff teams. Some of my playoff teams still looking pretty good. I don't know. It's going to happen.
Yeah, man. And so today is September 26th, and Monday's October. So we have 5 days, including tonight, left in the regular season, pending. Well, there is one game on Monday scheduled. It's a makeup game. And we'll see, like you said, we could have some tiebreakers too. So officially, Sunday, September 30th is the end of the regular season, but we'll see. There might be some more baseball before the playoffs start and after the regular season was originally set to conclude. So here we are, like I said, September 26th. And today, on this date in baseball history, September 26th, 1993, Randy Johnson,
the
big unit, got his 300th strikeout that season. He became the 8th player in baseball history, in Major League Baseball history, to do that. And on that note, something interesting happened yesterday, I believe it was, last night.
So last night, Mr. Mad Max Scherzer joined that club. Again, a club that he had already been in, but 300 strikeouts for Max Scherzer. In 220 and 2/3 innings, he's got a whip of .911, an ERA at 2.53, 18-7. All those numbers, given the strength of the field in the NL for the NL Cy Young, all those numbers would indicate that he should be, maybe a clear front runner. But Jacob deGrom doing things that haven't been done in years, maybe if not ever. 23 consecutive quality starts.
Yeah, he is setting records this year on one of the worst teams in baseball. He's actually pitching right now as we sit here and talk to you all. He's facing the Braves in what will be his final start of the regular season, of the season period. He's 9-9 coming into this game.
9-9.
So he's going for his 10th win in his last start of the season. I want to see him get to double digits. I want to see him win. Last I saw, it was a typical. I'll get an update here in a second, but it was a typical Jacob deGrom 2018 start. They're facing the Braves. He pitched, last I saw, 6 innings, allowed 2 hits, struck out 7, and the Mets had barely done anything. It's a 0-0 game, and that's kind of been the narrative almost the entire season. And then tomorrow the Mets will probably go out and score 8 runs. I don't know what it is. It's really remarkable to follow along the Jacob deGrom story of 2018.
It's insanity. And there's guys like Michael Wilbon comes to mind. He's one that came out staunchly against Jacob deGrom winning the Cy Young. Listen, he doesn't have much control over what his team does for him in terms of support. I made a habit of watching Jacob deGrom starts this season, and he drove in more runs during his starts than some of the players. He didn't get much support.
I think he's got 5 RBIs, and he's got
and all of them were in like 1-0 starts.
And he's got a bunch of runs too. Like he it's not just RBIs. He's actually scored for himself on a few occasions. If he hadn't, he probably would be sitting at 6-7 wins this year.
But Jacob deGrom, I mean, I give him the Cy Young edge right now. But 300 strikeouts for Max Scherzer, 18-7, 2.53. He didn't have a terrible year. He's a run worse in ERA, almost a run worse. Okay, but I mean, 300. He's got 45 more strikeouts than Jacob deGrom. It's going to be interesting. But we've seen it happen before. We saw it happen with Felix Hernandez, where they take it into consideration.
We got an update too from the Mets Braves game tonight. Jacob deGrom's final start. The Mets are winning 1-0.
Wow!
In the 7th inning,
it's impressive.
deGrom's allowed 2 hits.
That's it.
Yeah, a bad start for him. He's allowed 2 hits.
Now, how many hits do the Mets have?
The Mets currently have 4 because they had a big inning last inning. I think they had 1 hit coming into the 6th inning, and they managed to scratch across a run for deGrom. And that should be enough for him, but we'll see how far into the game he can go, because then you got the back end of that bullpen, who is, like most of the Mets roster, has been very questionable, especially of late. Gesellman had his worst outing of the year yesterday. They're hit or miss on the back end of that bullpen, and you got to figure just the way things have gone for deGrom, he'll pitch 8 innings or something, 8 shutout innings, and he'll be up to 130 pitches. And all right, let's bring Gesellman in for the 9th, and there goes his 10th win of the season. Because you got to figure, if he does get to double-digit wins, that's extremely impressive on that team, for one. And for another thing, that might be enough to sway some of the doubters in the Cy Young voting. If they at least
getting to double digits on a team
in a winning record
like that,
because he's got 9 losses. So he wins tonight, he'll have 10 wins, 9 losses. Maybe that's enough to sway some of the doubters. In my opinion, there shouldn't be any question about it. He should be the NL Cy Young winner, regardless of what happens tonight. But
I agree with you.
Not everybody sees it that way.
No, there's definitely some people that are rejecting that notion. But double-digit wins on a team with 70 wins that basically gave you no support at all every time you took the bump. 24, 25, 23 straight consecutive quality starts. It's insane.
Add another one tonight, because he's got a quality start officially.
Good for Jacob deGrom, and I think that he deserves the award. If you know anything about pitching, then he deserves the award. Metrics matter in pitching because the team control aspect of what happens at the plate on the offensive side of your team is out of your control. But where that differs,
it's mostly out of your control, unless you're deGrom and you go out there and you
hack,
get a few hits.
But where that differs in the race that differs in the race for like an MVP, or in this case, Rookie of the Year, they control every ounce of the metrics against them, standing in that box with the wood in their hand. Those players, the hitters, the batters, they control the metrics that they put up, the measurables, that the award getters. They control what they do in the box, and team outcome doesn't seem to matter so much for Rookies of the Year and MVP. As much as, they stick it to the pitcher for not having this amount of wins. Well, he didn't go stand in the box 9 times a game. It was out of his control. And if the team doesn't show up like they didn't show up for Jacob deGrom, how's that Jacob deGrom's fault for that award? But I'm kind of segueing into the Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I know. I know this one's been bugging you, hasn't it?
I've been seeing a lot of support for Shohei Ohtani winning AL Rookie of the Year. And, if we didn't mention it enough on our last broadcast, I need to kind of hammer that home again. It's not to discount anything that Shohei Ohtani has done. Not at all. And like you said a little while ago off camera, you can see why the Angels opted to let him wait until now to have the surgery, because they wanted him to put up some numbers.
It's pretty obvious. They could have shut him down, and they could have had the surgery, bought him an extra month or whatever it was. Not that in the grand scheme of things, that's a huge deal, I guess, because he's looking at missing all of next season anyways. But yeah, it's pretty obvious that what they were doing was giving him an extra month, 3 weeks, whatever it was, to accumulate some more stats and more at-bats to look more appealing in the AL Rookie of the Year voting. So yeah, they did announce, and I have to give a shout out to my lovely wife that she came home from work today and said, "You got to talk about Ohtani. He's having Tommy John surgery." So the torn UCL Angels strike again. Not a big surprise. We've known this was coming.
Hello, Andrea. Good topic to bring up. She probably didn't know that it had been irking me either.
No, probably not.
That's good.
It's like she's just tuning in now. I don't know if she was a little too late for my shout out to her on the Ohtani thing or not.
Yeah, your hubby's giving you a shout out for bringing up Ohtani today. It just, yesterday I read a thing on MLB.com about Shohei Ohtani eyeing the Rookie of the Year and totally discrediting what Miguel Andujar has been able to do on a team that is headed to the playoffs. And I think, it's my opinion, it might not be yours, and it's definitely not the popular opinion, but in terms of awards and value, measuring a player's value, the immeasurables need to be taken into account. What he's meant to his team, where he hits in the lineup. Has he carried his team for a stretch?
Well, how about how long he has been an integral part of the Yankees lineup?
Yeah,
too.
155 games.
Yeah, he missed what he wasn't a starter at the beginning. of the year.
Brandon Drury was starting,
but it didn't last long. It was a week or 2 weeks before Drury got hurt.
Miguel Andujar gave him no choice. When he first got the opportunity, he exploded.
And he's done it all year.
He gave him no choice.
I mean, you expect a rookie like that comes out of the gate on fire. You kind of have to expect some regression over the course of a 162-game season. And he just kept producing all year. And here he is at 26 home runs, 87 RBIs, whatever he's at.
298.
Batting 298.
854 OPS. I understand. Listen, all these metrics you want to shove at me that Shohei Ohtani's got a higher OPS. Okay, I get that. And I understand. We've talked how many times about how important OPS is, slugging percentage. I understand that. But he's also struck out more times in less at-bats than Miguel Andujar, and everybody wants to harp on how strikeouts don't matter, but they do. And he's playing on a team that he doesn't matter as much as Miguel Andujar has mattered to a team that's headed for more success than the Angels are. And that needs to matter.
And being on a team that really, really needed him, too. You get Judge going down. You had a whole bunch of other injuries this season. The Yankees fought through some portions of this season with some pretty devastating injuries, including just the other day losing Didi Gregorius
for the second time,
probably for the season now.
For the second time, they lost Didi Gregorius,
and Miguel
Sanchez is down, and Judge is down.
Right, and Miguel Andujar was a staple in that lineup.
Miguel Andujar,
every single day this.
I don't have it in front of me, but I'll bet you that he checks off multiple numbers in almost every single lineup position that there is. I bet he didn't hit leadoff this season, okay? But I'll bet you he probably hit second. I know he hit third and fourth and fifth and seventh and eighth and ninth. He's filled in everywhere that he was needed.
And you can say the same about Gleyber Torres.
The exact same thing. The two rookies there, and that's 1-2 in the Rookie of the Year for me. And that's not being a homer. It's not because I'm wearing the Yankees stuff right now. That's 1-2 just in value of what they meant to their team. Rookie of the Year, rookie campaign. The rookie campaign that I want to have, and the rookie campaign that I want on my team, is the rookie that leads all qualified rookies in RBIs, home runs, hits, runs scored. On base percentage is high. Slugging percentage is high. OPS is high. He's carried his team. He matters.
Hitting doubles at a historic pace, too, for a rookie. And
yeah,
just
43 doubles on the year for Miguel Andujar.
Every chance he got. So, yeah.
You can't say enough. I understand that the metrics favor Ohtani, but the games played don't favor Ohtani. The importance of the at-bats don't matter to him.
And I think that
it's not even close.
The small sample.
It makes me sick to even talk about it.
The small sample size argument should be reinforced by what they did in 2016, what the voters did in 2016 for the AL Rookie of the Year. You have Gary Sanchez come up,
far and away the best rookie that year.
2 months of just being arguably the best
player,
best hitter in baseball at the time. And
what?
Okay, you
what
know,
happened?
I understand the sample size.
Big game yesterday.
But you know what? You can't have it both ways. You can't say Michael Fulmer should have won the AL Rookie of the Year award in 2016, but Ohtani should win it this year. I don't care about the two-way player thing. Sample size is too small on both sides of the ball, from pitching standpoint and hitting standpoint. It's incredible what the kid did this year, what Ohtani did. When he was
I have no
healthy.
doubt. I'm not discrediting him.
And it's a
he's
shame.
not the Rookie of the Year.
It's a shame he's not going to be around next season, because he is one of the most exciting players in baseball, and he's an electric presence, and he brings excitement to the game. But you got to throw that out the window when you're deciding the Rookie of the Year. You have to look at the numbers. You have to look at the stats. You have to look at what he has meant to his own team. The Yankees didn't go to the playoffs in 2016 when Sanchez didn't win it. The Angels obviously not going this year. So the argument is null and void, in my opinion, because of what has already been shown as a precedent. And the two-way thing is something that there is no precedent for. But
Andujar's hitting 18 points higher. He's got double the hits. Double the hits. He's on base double the time. You can't. That's not an impact that you can ignore. How many more times on base the guy is versus the guy that's not ever in the lineup.
Yeah, and I'm sure we will get into this.
A DH. Imagine that, a DH winning Rookie of the Year.
And we'll get into this considerably more, I'm sure, when we do our awards show. I think we're going to do that next week or maybe the week after. Maybe next week we'll do postseason preview, but that's to be determined. But soon we will be doing an awards special and giving our awards and recapping our picks from the beginning of the season, seeing where we were right, where we were way off base. So we'll have a lot of time to discuss awards, but I do want to just throw in one other quick stat for somebody who is another player who should be winning some hardware this offseason. Christian Yelich with his second cycle of the month the other day. 2 cycles in a month. A bicycle.
That's good, right? And then 6 RBIs last night.
Yeah, you had a bicycle.
A bicycle. I like that. Did you coin that?
I did, and I stole it. I have to admit that. I can't take credit for it, but I thought it was so awesome I had to bring it up.
And it's good.
So, yeah, he had 2 cycles in less than a month. They were both against the Cincinnati Reds, which is hilarious. Christian Yelich, in a span of 3 weeks, hit for the cycle as many times as the Padres, Rays, and Blue Jays have in their franchise history.
Whoa! Franchise history.
He had 2 more.
How about that one, folks?
He had 2 more cycles in 3 weeks than these following players had in their entire careers.
Well, there's got to be a lot of zeros.
Babe Ruth, Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, and Barry Bonds.
Combined?
I don't know. I don't think combined. I think they all probably each had 1 over the course of their career.
Insane.
He had more cycles in 3 weeks than those players.
I like the franchise
individually
history,
had in their own careers. Yeah,
franchise history.
That was something I needed to bring up. I thought that was just amazing. And when I found out he hit for his second cycle, and I think both of them were like 6 innings into the game, he already had the cycle. And the first time around, I think he had the triple early. The last time around, the triple was the last one, I believe. So the hardest one to get was the one that he pulled it off with. So, when you're running your ass around the bases, going for your second cycle in 3 weeks, you can just imagine the emotion when you get to third base and dive in there, and it was a pretty cool thing to see. But
cementing himself. We're going to talk in a little while about it, but cementing himself more than likely as the NL MVP.
Absolutely. One of the other pretty interesting things, very notable to mention, is that we had our first official. I don't want to say firing, but John Gibbons will not be returning as manager of the Toronto Blue Jays.
They're going to be a train wreck coming up here soon. Before they can right that ship, they're going to be a train wreck. They need a GM. But John Gibbons, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, he will step down as manager of the Toronto Blue Jays after the season is finished. There's no official word. I haven't heard anything on the whole Mike Scioscia thing since I don't know what it was, just after the All-Star break when Ken Rosenthal had reported that it was likely his final season in L.A., in torn UCLA.
77 and 81.
You got to figure that guy, Mike Scioscia, is probably
all those expectations
just itching to get out of there. I mean, it's just one pitcher after another just going down with elbow injuries. Pujols, all the respect in the world to him, and you may hear his name later in the show in one of our frequent regular segments. Just teasing that a little bit. Maybe you won't. Maybe you will. But yeah, aside from Mike Trout, there is really nothing good about being involved in the LA Angels organization.
No, not at all.
Ohtani, huge bright spot, but all comes crashing down when he's going to miss all of next season. Future's bright for him. He's young, but that's a bummer, and I completely would understand that decision, and I would agree with it, and I would do the same thing if I was Mike Scioscia. He's proven himself there. He won a World Series title. Get out, go maybe do some commentating for a year, do some broadcasting, and then year or two down the line, you might have your pick of jobs. Get out of torn UCLA land and fresh start somewhere else. So we'll see. I think he will be gone, but no official word yet. But we'll know here within the next 4 or 5 days, I'm sure.
Mike Scioscia, he won that, he played in a World Series way back when and won a World Series way back when. And speaking of way back when, shout out to our sponsor. This little opening segment here and this date in baseball was brought to you by Utica Club. Utica Club made history way back when.
Yes, they did.
When they became the first beer served in the United States after Prohibition.
Yeah,
and if you want to make history,
just minutes
you
after,
should have yourself a Utica Club too.
Just minutes after Prohibition was repealed, Utica Club.
It's funny how that beer was ready.
It was just magic.
But and, Utica Club,
on
go
a silver platter
and
too.
The plethora of other good products at the Saranac Brewing Company.
They paraded Utica Club down the street on a silver platter to celebrate the end of Prohibition.
Perfect.
And like you said, there's so many good products from Saranac. Utica Club is obviously one of our favorites here at the D, but there is plenty of other delicious products, including awesome soft drinks.
Yes.
I love the black cherry they do. The root beer is one of the best, if not the best in the world.
Take yourself a brewery tour and go to the Saranac Summer Concert Series or Saranac Thursdays, which you have played multiple times.
Yeah, and there's something for everybody.
Big shout out to Saranac. We don't give enough credit to
take your kids,
how much they fuel our
Take
show.
your kids on a brewery tour. I remember going down to the brewery when I was a kid and sitting there and having my root beer and just thinking how cool it was, and you don't have to go there to have an adult beverage. You can go there with your kids, have a root beer, and go on the tour and check out the old facilities and the new facilities and everything that they have going on down there at Saranac.
But yeah, definitely. Big shout out to Saranac. Thanks for doing what you do and being so damn delicious and sponsoring Disruption Network.
Yeah.
So we're going to get into the rundown here. Gotta give
rundown.
I got a
Amigo.
Lenzo. We got to throw Amigo on there. Dude, we're going to get into the rundown here. We're going to talk about the NL. And it is
NL.
tight.
We can pretty much skip the entire AL.
We can. I mean, we're going to talk about it in a minute, but I mean, why don't you just start off in the NL East there?
All right, the NL East. The Braves have clinched the division title. Who saw that coming? Honestly, they've won 6 in a row. Just going into the postseason hot. They are fighting for home field advantage still as well. So the Atlanta Braves sitting at 89 and 68 on top of that division. The Washington Nationals finally 3 games over 500. I can't remember the last time I was able to say that. But they have won 3 in a row. You got to wonder if we're sitting here looking at Bryce Harper's last days as a Washington National. He did come out and say the other day that he would love to be back with Washington, and he has loved his time there, and he hopes to be back. Whether that will happen or not, we will see, because he is going to have many teams throwing boatloads of money at him in a matter of a couple months.
Bryce Harper,
You're out.
he's gone. No way.
So second place is Washington, because they've been down in third for most of the season, because the Philadelphia Phillies were just, at one point they were hot, and they were even leading that division for a good portion of the early to mid part of the season. But they are under 500 now, 78 and 79, 11 games back of Atlanta. They've lost 6 in a row. Just what a disappointing end to the season for the Philadelphia Phillies after
Gabe Kapler.
Gabe Kapler.
You talk about the ultimate highs and lows.
He's a roller coaster of a manager, but I like what I see from him most of the time, but there are times you just shake your head and you just say, wow. So Philadelphia came crashing and burning down to third place. The New York Mets at 73 and 84.
So many.
We have talked a lot about the Mets this year. It has not been a roller coaster for the Mets. It has just been the pits for the Mets the entire season. It's been the pits. It's amazing to think that they're only 11 games under 500.
It's been very metty.
They're only 11 games under 500, but you got to remember they started, what was it,
11 games old?
11-1 or something. And yeah, so not a great season for the Mets. Jacob deGrom, what more can we say about him? And if we can get an update, the Mets are now leading 3-0. It's an offensive outburst
for Jacob
deGrom.
That might be the most. That's more runs than he got in the previous 5 starts combined.
That's like scoring like 15 runs for another starter, is putting up 3.
Like the Red Sox did today?
Backing Jake. Yeah, with the Red Sox. Rafael Devers, phenomenal day. And it's a doubleheader. They're actually playing right now. They're tied with Baltimore. It's funny how baseball works. The Boston Red Sox win earlier today, 19-3. And here we are, game 2 of the doubleheader, and it's 3-3, top of the 6th. So yeah, the New York Mets there in 4th place, and then bringing up the rear in that division is the Miami Marlins, 27.5 games back. And that's your NL East. Atlanta Braves looking good, and team to watch in the postseason.
So we're going to talk about it a little more next week. We'll get into our predictions, but look out for one of us. Can't speak for you, but look out for one of us to be really high on the Braves. Moving over to the National League Central, the enigma that is the Cubs continues to lead over there, but by a very, very, very slim margin. Dropping inexplicable games lately, the Cubs are. Obviously, the bullpen issues have kind of caught up with them. Brandon Morrow being out. Now, Pedro Strop, not really a defined closer. Steve Cishek by the Seashore has been filling in, I guess, admirably.
A bunch of guys have been filling in there. And they actually have not had many save opportunities in the last since Strop went down.
Chavez.
Since Strop went down, I think there may have been 2 save opportunities. Cishek got one of them because he got the last out of the game. Cishek by the Seashore. But since Strop went down, it's been mix and match, and there have not been too many opportunities. They've been few and far in between. Tonight, for what it's worth, the Cubs are up 5-1 on the Pittsburgh Pirates in the 4th inning, and the Milwaukee Brewers are up 2-1 on the St. Louis Cardinals. And what a huge series that is here coming into the last days of the season, to have the Milwaukee Brewers going to St. Louis. And Milwaukee is hot right now. They're winning games. The Cubs are losing. Coming into today, they're only a half a game behind the Cubs. So wow, what a race! And St. Louis is right there too. I mean, they're not too far out of it. They've fallen back a couple games because they have lost to Milwaukee here a couple times in the series. But they're right there on the cusp, and they could end up getting that wild card. You could see 3 teams. I mean, you're probably going to see 3 teams coming out of that division.
I agree.
It's the best division race right now. After the NL West was the best for a while, which is still very good too. That Milwaukee Cubs St. Louis trio in the NL Central is just, it's going to be fun to watch here in the next few days.
Yeah. So the way that I look at it, I view St. Louis as basically out just because of how bad the Cubs have played and brought themselves back down into contention for the wild card instead of the division. So now you got the Brewers and the Cubs are going to fight it out for that. And I just think that the 4.5 that St. Louis is out is just a little bit too much to overcome. And I think the Chicago Cubs are a borderline wild card team right now, which they are. Milwaukee's a half a game back. LA and Colorado, no more Arizona, but LA and Colorado, Milwaukee and Chicago, St. Louis is going to be fun, like you said.
And St. Louis is only a half a game behind Colorado for the second wild card spot, so don't count them out yet, even though they're kind of having a rough go of it. The Rockies are hot right now, though. They've won 5 in a row. So, yeah, it's fun to watch. And it's it's nice to have a race like that, as Yankees fans, to kind of watch as an outsider. And
the Dodgers are
just enjoy it for what it's worth and not actually have a horse in the race.
The Dodgers are a series away from not being a playoff team. That's how dangerous this is. We look at them as one of the best teams in the National League. Many people do. And they are a bad series away from not being in the playoffs at all.
Yeah, as are Colorado and St. Louis. And this series versus Milwaukee might be that series, might be that bad series for them.
Like we said, we have a legitimate possibility of having like a 4-way tie. It's going to be great. Baseball. That's why they call it baseball. John, that's baseball, Susan. That's what John Sterling would say.
Dave's checking in.
Baseball, Susan.
Dave said the brewery has tours.
Yeah, man.
Dave knows a little something about brewery tours.
I'm sure that he does. More than one somethings about brewery tours, I'm sure. But if you want a private tour with our own off-site statistician, the man behind the curtain, I'm sure that it can be arranged.
Yeah, a former tour guide at the FX Matt Brewing Company.
Hey, maybe Jay's
Saranac and Utica Club are brewed.
Maybe Jay's checking in. He was too.
Yeah, we have a whole bunch of friends and listeners that either have worked there, have been the ones who have given the tours themselves, or have been the tour guides that I showed up to torture for many times over the years. Dave was one of them.
It's part of it. So moving down in the NL Central, you get the Pittsburgh Pirates at 80-76, still above 500.
Yeah, they turned it around a little bit at the end of the year. Obviously, too little, too late, but some good signs there. And it was nice to see him go out and pick up Chris Archer and pick up Keone Keela. He's been hurt, hasn't worked out too well, but Archer's been okay. He's been up and down. He's had some good starts, but it was nice to see the Pittsburgh Pirates, a team that has been notorious for not spending money so that they can maximize profit, in going out and picking up a Chris Archer and actually going out and making moves and picking up players at the deadline, even though they weren't even, they were, I guess you could say they were in contention for a wild card spot, but they were a long shot when they picked up those guys. But Pittsburgh Pirates sitting there at 4th place, and then you got your Cincinnati Reds, 26 games back.
My Reds.
66-93. They've lost 5 in a row.
They would need to win out for me to get my over. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm not a betting man, but I don't think that it's going to happen. Disappointment for that lineup. Eugenio Suarez had a good. You want to talk about sinking like a rock? How about Joey Votto?
Yeah. He definitely didn't have a type of season you would expect from Joey Votto. I don't know. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes you see these weird oddball seasons from some of these stars. But yeah, that's something I did not expect at all for him to have the season he's having. And his numbers aren't terrible. It's just not what you would expect out of like an MVP caliber type player, really.
Scooter Gennett had a good year. Eugenio Suarez had a good year. They're on the uptick. The Reds will be an okay franchise soon enough. They got a couple guys coming their way. But for now, they're in the cellar of a highly contested NL Central, and then moving over to the NL West, another one. Tight at the top.
Speaking of highly contested.
Tight at the top over in the West. The Dodgers, 88-70.
just hanging on to first place right now, just clinging to it. Half a game up on Colorado. Colorado has won 5 in a row. Colorado was my pick, one of my picks. I think I picked Milwaukee and Colorado as the wild cards to begin the year, and they've even surprised me a little bit because after the first couple months of the season, I was backpedaling on that pick a little bit, thinking that maybe I was off base there. But no, Colorado really has poured it on. Trevor Story having just an awesome year. A little injury scare there with the elbow. No damage, and he is back in their lineup. Charlie Blackmon having another good year, maybe slightly down from what some people expected of him, but still an awesome very good year.
Yeah.
Bunch of good players there, too. I mean, you could go on and on with some of the guys that are having solid seasons there. Nolan Arenado, MVP-type player. And then, your role players there, Para and LeMahieu, Cargo, I guess you wouldn't call him a role player, but not looked at one of the key cogs in that lineup anymore. But all of them really pretty solid year for the most part. So Colorado right there, I mean, they have, according to this percentage chart I'm looking at, they have a 67% chance of making the postseason this year because they could very well win the division, and they're currently sitting in that second wild card spot. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there, but that is one of the more exciting races. Arizona's dropped back considerably.
They're out of playoff contention.
Yeah.
8 games back.
I think they might actually be eliminated at this point.
Yes, they are. Yep. 0.0%.
Yeah, 0.0%. 2-8 in their last 10.
0.0.
That's a team that just couldn't put it together. They went on spurts where they looked like they were, could be a World Series contender with some of the bats they have and some of the pitching they have with Greinke. Robbie Ray never really put it together this year. Zach Godley had kind of an up and down, very mediocre season. Taijuan Walker was injured beginning of the year. He missed the season. So, yeah, they had some talent there, but, yeah, just hit that slope at the end of the season. September has not been kind, for sure. Speaking of September not being kind, San Francisco is 15 games back. And your San Diego Padres, a team with a very bright future, 25 games back at 63-95. So that's your NL.
A very, very,
and that's
very
the
future.
Much more exciting league to be talking about right now going into these last few days of the season, because the AL, like I mentioned earlier, it's pretty much...
there's one thing we got to worry about in the AL.
There's one thing to be decided, and it's a pretty major thing as a Yankees fan, but compared to the NL, it's a minor thing.
Well, speaking of being a Yankees fan, and decisions to be made, the Yankees, no matter where this game is played, the Yankees have a big decision.
They do.
To be made. A big decision. So the Yankees' big decision is, who are they going to start in this one-game playoff with Oakland? And that's so up in the air right now.
It's up in the air, and I've even kind of gone back and forth on it over the last.
I'll tell you what.
Weeks.
Today I was leaning towards starting Tanaka, and now you look at what he did tonight, and you're like, yeah, you know what? Maybe not. Severino's had a couple solid starts back to back to back. Maybe not what we're accustomed to when Severino's supposed to be, the guy, 8 innings pitched and 4 hits.
Yeah, your workhorse 8.
1 walk and 10 Ks. We haven't seen that. He's given up some runs. He's been hit hard for a few short stretches the last couple games, but nothing crazy. Right now, if I was leaning towards a guy, I would be leaning towards Severino. And the reason I say that, J-Happ has been fantastic. He's been phenomenal. And I'm not saying that you can go out and you can plan for the series that's going to be next.
You can't.
But J-Happ has been
put all
awesome.
Your cards on the table.
J-Happ's been awesome against Boston.
He has.
So J-Happ game 1 against Boston would be ideal. So if we're going to line it up that way, and it warrants being said that Oakland has legitimate right-handed power. Why are we going to go and start a lefty against some pretty legitimate big bats from the right-hand side. The matchups can't be as favorable as they are with Happ against Boston. So that would leave Tanaka and Severino. And after tonight, I got to be leaning towards Severino. Does Severino have a quick hook in that game? Only if he gets into showing the bad traits of Luis Severino.
Well, you saw it last year.
If he starts to be wild, he's got to have a quick hook if you see him go off the rails. If not, let him pitch. Let him pitch.
Well, you saw that.
He's been your ace all year.
You saw that exact thing last season. The Yankees playing Minnesota in the wild card game. They started Severino. He was a train wreck for a couple innings. They hooked him. Ended up coming back and winning in a bullpen game. So, yeah, I agree. And I'm not extremely confident starting Severino in a wild card game, but I am more confident in him starting it than I am with J-Happ for sure because of many of the reasons you already mentioned with the righty power in that lineup for Oakland. Davis and Matt Olson are two of the most powerful raw power hitters in the game. And I know Matt Olson's home run numbers were a little bit down from what people expected, especially after, he had like a Gary Sanchez type, he had like a Judge type run last season. I think he ended up finishing with like 24 home runs in like 200 at-bats or I think it was less, 180 at-bats or something.
There's legitimate right-handed power in that lineup. And if the game is in Yankee Stadium, you really want him to be able to shoot the ball to right field that way, off at J-Happ, with that right-handed power. I don't. If the game is in Yankee Stadium, I want to see him pitch Severino. Severino tends to keep the ball in the park. He gets hit hard sometimes, and he gives up doubles and singles, but he tends to keep the ball in the park. He gets wild and he walks people, but he keeps the ball in the park.
So you mentioned Tanaka's performance tonight, and just to kind of update everybody on what that actually is, how that went down was he went 4 innings. He's out of the game already. It's the bottom of the 6th. He only went 4 innings, gave up 6 hits, walked 1, 3 earned runs. So not the worst start you'll ever see, but he didn't help his case. You got to wonder if they pulled him after 4. I don't know what his pitch count was at. I can pull that up, but you got to wonder if they pulled him after 4 innings. He went 80 pitches because they are going to give him a little extra couple innings off, I guess, to still consider him. You don't make your decision quite yet. You figure out what you're going to do once you know what stadium you're going to be playing that game in. So I wouldn't count Tanaka out yet, but I am in agreement with you that it should be Luis Severino in the game and give him.
I'll tell you what, 0.9.
You have to give him the quick hook.
0.9 home runs per 9 innings for this season. Playing in that ballpark, half your starts in that ballpark. 0.9 home runs per 9 innings. He keeps the ball in the park. The risk reward, if you will, if we're going to bring like a golf term in here, the risk reward, it's just way more in favor of Luis Severino. It is.
Yeah.
The ceiling is higher.
I agree.
And you know what? The floor might be higher.
Well,
the floor might be higher
Aaron
for him.
Boone has control to if things start looking like they could be just on the precipice of turning into a disaster to yank him and put somebody else in. So it's not like you're stuck with him for the whole game. If you have to, like last year, with what Girardi did and pulling him early, you have that option. And like you said, the upside in the potential benefit of starting Luis Severino. If you get the Luis Severino of June, then if you have that chance, you take it.
Absolutely. And so you do have that chance. And if he exhibits those signs, like you say, if he exhibits those signs, you leave him in, you let him fly. Throw 100 pitches, throw till your arm falls off, which I don't really mean. But he's a horse.
Yeah, and if it goes well, then
he's a horse.
Then you have Tanaka.
To put it in perspective,
you got Tanaka and Happ, a lefty righty to start.
Tanaka giving up almost
an ALDS.
Almost
if you get
full
there.
home run per 9 innings more than Severino. And if the game is in Yankee Stadium and you have all that power up and down the Oakland lineup, you don't want it to come down a home run fest. And I realize that the Yankees can go out and hit home runs. Speaking of Yankees home runs, since our last broadcast, Luke Voigt with his 10th home run, making 12 guys on the Yankees with double digits in home runs. 12 guys, a major league record.
An MLB record.
That's pretty good.
It's good, right?
That's good, right?
MLB records are good, right? Speaking of MLB records, Jake DeGrom update. It's a final. The Mets win 3-0.
So many.
Seth Lugo gets the save. Jacob DeGrom goes 8 shutout innings to earn his 10th win of the season. And I think that should be the final thing he needs to get the Cy Young this year.
Jacob DeGrom, everybody.
And there's more breaking news tonight. There is an MLB record tonight. There is an MLB record that has happened tonight. German Marquez of the Colorado Rockies has struck out the first 8 batters he has faced to tie an MLB record tonight. There you go. German Marquez deserves that. The Philadelphia, and that is over. It ended. It is a tied record, but very impressive nonetheless. Colorado playing a big game up on the Philadelphia Phillies, 1-0 currently. German Marquez, another guy who's been very good, kind of underrated pitcher this year. Maybe because he pitches in Coors Field, he doesn't quite get the recognition he deserves. But having a very good year there for the Rockies.
Speaking of people that pitch in Colorado that might not be getting the recognition that they deserve, can we give a little shout out to Kyle Freeland?
Yeah.
Kyle Freeland is officially going to finish with the lowest ERA for a qualified starter in franchise history for the Colorado Rockies this year. I believe at last check he was like 2.84. Good for Kyle.
Very under the radar, too. And undeservedly so, because he is having a phenomenal season. All right, so we kind of led into the AL East here with some of the Yankees talk and what we think about what they're going to be doing going into the postseason. This is going to be our last show before the playoffs start, so we figure we'd have to get that in there because we've been talking about it on and off for the last couple of weeks off air on what our thoughts were, and I have gone back and forth. I think I could tell you over the last 2-3 weeks I've said it at certain individual moments that Severino, Tanaka, and Happ should be the starter. And things change, things kind of evolve, and we've talked about this enough for now, and we will be, I'm sure, recapping this next week on what the decision was and what we thought about it and how it went. So in the AL East,
we totally just tangent talked, didn't we?
The Boston Red Sox, to give credit where credit is due, 107 wins right now. 9.5 games up on a 97-win Yankees team. 19.5 up on an 87-win Tampa Bay Rays team. And to put that in perspective, Tampa Bay has the same record as Colorado, who is in a wild card spot in the NL. And Boston is 19.5 games up on them.
Kevin Cash, gotta watch out.
Kevin Cash, great job this year. Certainly in the conversation for AL Manager of the Year, one of the favorites for it. There's a few good choices this year, but he definitely deserves to throw his hat into that ring. Toronto Blue Jays, who did announce John Gibbons was not coming back next year, will not be the manager of Toronto in 2019. And the Baltimore Orioles, 61.5 games behind the Boston Red Sox.
How many saves does Diaz have?
I think he's at, I'd have to look up the specific number, but I think he's at maybe about 57. So it looks like Baltimore will win our little competition here of games back in the AL East versus Edwin Diaz saves. And for a while it was neck and neck, but Baltimore really ran away with it here over the last couple of weeks. 61.5 games back. 45 wins, 112 losses.
That is awful.
They will not be the worst team in history, but after having Machado for half of a season, you really got to wonder that current roster, it might be the worst in baseball history. Maybe not by the official win-loss totals, but wow. And they lost 19-3 to Boston. 19-3 loss to Boston earlier this afternoon. Ooh.
Baltimore Orioles. This is awful. 61 and a half games out.
As fun as it has been watching that games back number just balloon this season, that's probably the last time we're going to be mentioning that whole deal for 2018 anyway. We'll see. There might be another 2019 Baltimore Orioles watch too, the way things are going, because things aren't going to get better anytime soon.
Not anytime soon for them. Moving over to the AL Central, the Cleveland Indians cruise control for about the last month here, 88 and 69, 15 and a half games up against one of the bigger disappointments in Major League Baseball this year, at least by their standard, the Minnesota Twins.
Yeah. Playoff team last year, young roster, expected to take the next step this year, and everything went wrong.
The Detroit Tigers are closer to the Twins than the Twins are to the Indians, and that's not the way that the Twins saw it this year. Speaking of the Tigers, 64 and 93. The White Sox, at least the White Sox and the Royals can claim rebuilding. At least they have a younger core on the way in both of those places. I don't know how they're going to turn it around that quick. But
hey, Chicago White Sox are only 26 games out of first place. Baltimore Orioles are 61 and a half. Something to hang their hat on.
At least we're not the Orioles.
Yeah.
Perfect. And the Kansas City Royals with 55 wins. The Kansas City Royals are 30 and 47 at home and 25 and 55 on the road, and they have been outscored by 197 runs. And they are 10 games better than the Baltimore Orioles. 10 games. And they have outscored the Baltimore Orioles by like 85 runs.
That is funny, losing 102 games. But there's a team out there that lost 10 more.
Games worse.
There's another team. They need at least,
shameful. I feel bad for all Oriole fans. I've been saying it for shows and shows and shows. I feel bad for you guys.
They should give out hats like they do after a playoff series win or a World Series championship to the Kansas City Royals after the end of the season. It says, at least we're not the Baltimore Orioles.
At least we didn't suck as bad as the O's.
We suck slightly less.
Yeah. So 72 and 84 for the Minnesota Twins, 64 and 93, 62 and 95 for the Tigers and the White Sox, and 55 and 102 for the Royals. Moving over to the West, two of the better teams in baseball in one division, both clinched.
Yeah, the Houston Astros.
100 wins out there for the Astros again.
They're the only other 100-win team out there as of today, sitting there at 158. 5 games up on Oakland. They've clinched the division. Oakland has clinched a wild card spot, 95 and 63. And you know we have talked about it time and time again. But what a cool story. What a great run for Oakland here over the last 3 months or so. Get back not only into the playoff discussion, but to just rocket up the standings and threaten that home field advantage spot in the wild card game with the New York Yankees. So props to Bob Melvin and the Oakland A's. But as a Yankees fan, that ends after Sunday. I am not an Oakland. Props. I am not an Oakland A's fan after Sunday.
No more
all the
props.
Respect in the world to him, but
Bob Melvin, go get your fucking shine box.
That has
Bob
to be
Melvin.
Put on hold.
That's it. Go get your shine
for
box.
A few days.
That's it. It does need to be put on hold. You're right. Boo to the A's too, but I'll tell you what. I'm curious to know. Is Dave watching right now? Dave, if you're chiming in, I need a stat kind of looked up here because I got this finicky thing happening here with this computer. So I'm curious to know how many defending World Series champions have won 100 games the year after the defending year. Because that's quite an accomplishment. You see a lot of teams kind of falter the year after winning the World Series.
You do, or they have a good year, but they win like 95
like
games
the Cubs.
Or something.
The Cubs made the playoffs with like 92 wins the year after winning 100 and winning the World Series. And so I'm curious to know, Dave, if you're watching, I want to know how many teams have won 100 after that. And he says, and back, too. I just saw you. How many teams, Dave, have won 100 games the year after winning the World Series? Because that's a feat. It's a good feat.
Yes, it is.
100 wins. I'm also not a fan of the Houston Astros come come this time next week either.
Yeah, or the Indians, Dave. Sorry.
Or the Red
unless
Sox.
they're playing Boston, then I'll be a fan of them. Yeah,
Well,
then
if the Indians are playing Boston, then that's not good for us.
It's not, but I will be rooting for the Indians.
I agree with you. I'll be cheering for the Braves at that point.
Round out the bottom of the AL West, we got Seattle, 13.5 games back. Very promising season. Kind of got derailed a little bit. Robinson Cano distraction, and D. Gordon went ice cold, and some of their pitchers got
ice
hurt.
cold. I mean, you're being nice.
Yeah. So very disappointing end of the year for them. After it looked like for a while there, we thought we were looking at the playoff teams already around the All-Star break or slightly before. And Seattle was one of those teams that we had pretty close to punching a ticket. But sometimes things happen where
I stuck my foot in my
didn't
mouth.
expect it.
I did. We didn't count. The A's were not even in the picture, and ever since they penciled in Olsen and Chapman in the lineup at the same time, they have just absolutely exploded from something like 3 or 4 games under 500 to where they are now. The Oakland Athletics.
Yep, and here we are now.
Scary team.
Seattle in third.
Scary team. Don't get me wrong, but
the torn UCLA Angels,
77 and 81.
77 and 81, 23 games behind Houston.
86 wins, a promising season for the Mariners, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They still had a good
like
year.
Like you said.
It just,
over 500 at home and on the road.
Edwin Diaz's season has been, he's not going to set the record.
Tell you what, they're 15 games over 500. They've been outscored for the season.
And
so you tell me how
another team. You put them in the NL, they're right there in the wild card race.
They've been outscored for the season. They're negative 37 as their run differential for the season.
But 15 games above 500.
15 games above 500. Tell me how important Edwin Diaz was to that team. Tell me how important he was. Negative 37. They've been outscored for the year 15 games over 500.
Pretty important.
So the Seattle Mariners promising. They have a nice young core there. A decent young core with the Seguras and the Hanigers. So maybe you see him stick around and do it again.
And then last but not least, because the Baltimore Orioles exist, the Texas Rangers 66 and 91 with a 420 win percentage and 33.5 games back. You got to wonder.
Can you go over those stats one more time?
66
Was
and
that
91.
66 wins? 33.5 games back?
Yep.
66?
420 winning percentage.
21 wins better than the Baltimore Orioles. 21. 21 games. 66 and 91. Good for a 420 winning percentage. 33.5 games back, and they are 20 games better than someone.
They are 20 games better than somebody, yeah.
Oofa! Sorry, pouring it on the Orioles. Like Sean said, this will be the last show where we even need to mention
so we have
the Baltimore Orioles.
We have to.
Or the Mets, for that matter.
We have to
But stick around next year. I think we got a nice little segment brewing. That's so Metty.
Yeah.
Each week I can read something about the Mets, and it's worthy of being reported as so peculiar that it could only be the Mets.
So Texas, too, you got to wonder if this is it for Adrian Beltre. If this is it or if he's going to continue to stick it out.
I wish he went to a contender.
Yeah, he didn't want to, though. I think they would have accommodated him if he really wanted to. You would have saw him get traded to, say a Boston or even Cleveland at the time, pre-Josh Donaldson trade. But, he didn't want to go anywhere. He wanted to stay there, and you got to wonder if these next few days may very well be the final days of a storied Hall of Fame career, one of the best third baseman I have ever seen, and probably one of the best ever. I'd like to see him continue to play, but for his sake, playing in that heat down there too in Texas, that is just brutal heat in midsummer down there. And if you're losing at the pace that they lost this year and have that type of season, a losing season like that, that's got to be rough. He's probably somebody who's ready. I mentioned Mike Scioscia is ready to get out of Dodge in LA, maybe he's ready to call it a career and move on to the next step. We'll see.
Dave chiming in. Apparently, I asked a question that nobody has ever asked the Magic 8 Ball before, because he said, it appears no one has looked this up before your question.
Oh, how about that?
Yeah. What are you going to do?
Well, we appreciate the effort as always, Dave. And
yeah, dude.
wow, it's a record. We just broke another record.
It's what I do. It's what I do. So that's the first portion of the rundown. We're going to peel through these league leaders really quick.
That's the top of the rundown. We'll go to the bottom of the rundown here.
Yeah, we got to go to the bottom half of the inning here. Moving on over to league leaders. Who you got?
So in your American League leaders here for batting average, Mookie Betts, 346. He's got the batting title locked up. He is, to me and probably to everybody, unquestionably the American League MVP this year.
Yep.
JD Martinez, second, phenomenal year with the bat, but doesn't bring anything to you as far as being a fielder.
I think the bigger question is who you got, like second, third, fourth, fifth.
Right.
I think that's the bigger battle.
And you got some heavy hitters. You got
I'll tell you
big
what,
names there too.
You finished fifth in this MVP vote in the AL.
Yeah.
You had a hell of a year.
Yes, you did.
A hell of a year.
Even beyond that, you finished 7th, 8th in the American League.
Seriously.
MVP voting. You had
one hell of a year.
Phenomenal.
Because a guy with JD Martinez's numbers offensively, I understand he doesn't play defense. Don't give me that shit, okay? I understand.
Well, he's having a triple crown caliber year.
He's having a triple crown caliber year. That's a great year. And Mookie Betts is having that much better of a year than he is. But you got, the Trouts and Chris Davis, another guy.
Lindor.
Chapman. Olsen. Lots of guys. Jose Ramirez has cooled off a little. But Lindor for sure. So close.
So, yeah, you got the Boston teammates there at the top of the AL average leaderboard. Martinez at 330. Mike Trout, 315.
They're all separated by 15 points, too.
Altuve, 314. And Michael Brantley having a nice bounce-back season for Cleveland, batting 309. So that's your AL leaders.
As we talked about earlier on the show, Christian Yelich having a hell of a year. As far as I'm concerned with the bicycle.
The bicycle.
Bicycle. Christian Yelich riding his bicycle, hitting 321, just pouring it on this month. I think he cemented himself as the MVP in the National League right now. Scooter Gennett has been hitting 313 for the entire season, it seems. Right around that range. He peaked around the 330 range in May, but settled down and had 315 to 320 all season long. What a great season.
You could say the same thing about the next guy, too.
Lorenzo Cain hitting 311. Lorenzo Cain also having a fantastic season war-wise. We're going to get to that later.
How about how, I think it was last night, it was last night or the night before, the Cardinals walked Lorenzo Cain to load the bases to face Christian Yelich. And I mean, granted, Cain is having a great year, but you load the bases probably for the favorite for the NL MVP. And spoiler alert, it did not go well for the St. Louis Cardinals. It was a bad decision.
Yeah, spoiler alert. So, yeah, Christian Yelich and Lo Cain are absolutely pacing that Brewers team. We haven't even really touched on it. We're going to touch on it next week when we do our matchups, but an outstanding bullpen there in Milwaukee. They can make a run. They could be making a run. But Christian Yelich, 321, Scooter Gennett, 313, Lorenzo Cain, 311, Ben Zobrist, qualified and hitting 310 for the Chicago Cubs, and Anthony Rendon, who had a pretty good start last night as well. Good night for Rendon. He's hitting 309 for the Washington Nationals. Over to the AL home runs leaders.
You got your K-Ris Davis, not to be confused with
the guy who's
the worst player in baseball in Baltimore. Not to keep ragging in Baltimore, but K. Davis of the Oakland A's.
The worst contract in baseball, maybe.
46 now, David Price is, but it's close.
I agree.
Chris Davis with 46, JD Martinez with 42, Joey Pico de Gallo with 40,
The Gallo.
Mike Trout 38, and Jose Ramirez with 38. Over the year NL, the guy on the top of the leaderboard is somebody nobody would have picked. Great player, but nobody would have picked him to be leading.
Especially after the start that he
Yeah,
had. Oh, my God.
nobody would be expecting he would be leading the NL in home runs here on September 26th.
Matt Carpenter with 36 home runs. Bryce Harper with 34. Bryce Harper giving an interview yesterday, basically alluding to the fact that he doesn't understand what his future is going to be with the Washington Nationals, as everyone in the universe knows that the future is uncertain for Bryce Harper in Washington. But Bryce Harper came out and said it last night.
Speaking of Bryce Harper, he's the only player in the NL right now with 100 runs, 100 RBIs, and 100 walks. So even though it was a down season, he still did something that nobody else in the National League accomplished this year.
He's going to get paid. It doesn't matter if it's considered a down year at all. He scored 100 runs. He drove in 100 runs. 34 home runs. He's going to get paid. And he's young. He's 25. Nolan Arenado with 34 home runs, tied with Javi Baez and Jesus Aguilar. Over to your AL RBI leader.
Your leader in AL RBI is JD Martinez. Surprise, surprise. He's been the leader almost the entire season. He's got 127. Number 2 is K. Davis of Oakland with 120. Jose Ramirez with 104. Alex Bregman, 103. Great season there, too. One of the best young players in the game. And Edwin Encarnacion of the Cleveland Indians with 101 RBIs. So another good, productive season for Edwin. Over to the NL, another guy that nobody would have predicted would be leading the league in RBIs on
111.
September 26th.
For potential NL MVP Javi Baez. Potential NL MVP. A lot of Cub fans and a lot of fans out there would crucify me for even calling him potential. They think it's locked up, but I think it's Yelich. But potential NL MVP Javi Baez with 111.
Yeah, and
Nolan Arenado with 105.
you might hear Javi's name a little later in the show.
Jesus Aguilar came from nowhere. Jesus Aguilar with 34 and 105. 34 and
Another unexpected awesome season, too. And there's so many of those guys on the leaderboard, too. There's so
34 and 105. Jesus Aguilar. Nobody saw that one coming. So Aguilar, Yelich, and Kane pacing the way on that Milwaukee team. Plus the addition of Jonathan Scope and Shaw. That's a deep lineup, a deep bullpen. They're poised to make a run. But Jesus Aguilar with 105 out of nowhere. Christian Yelich with 104. And Trevor Story with 102. Runs batted in for your NL RBI leader. Over into the pitchers, we're going to talk about the potential Cy Young winner here in the AL. Blake Snell with 21 wins. Really the only starter to speak of on that Tampa Bay team. Deploying the opener over so many weeks now here. And honestly, it's been working well for him. Lowest ERA in the game since deploying the opener the first time. Sergio Romo. A guy like Mr. Yarbrough with 15 wins on the season, but Blake Snell has paced the way for that Tampa Bay resurgence, kind of with their 88 wins or 86 wins that they got right now. 21 wins, warranting himself well inside the Cy Young conversation in the AL. Corey Kluber also in that Cy Young conversation, becoming the second guy in the AL to get to 20 wins. He got to 20, I believe, yesterday. Luis Severino with 19. Rick Porcello having a quietly good, decent year with 17. And Justin Verlander with 16 for your AL wins leader.
Yeah, I got to say, Blake Snell, in my opinion, should be the Cy Young winner. Tampa Bay ended up having a good team after all. Blake Snell has developed into a true ace, and that's not to discredit anything Kluber has done. or some of these other guys, Garrett Cole and Verlander, Severino for stretches of the season. But Blake Snell to me is the Cy Young. He's got it locked up in my opinion. And Corey Kluber voters might have something to say about that, but yeah, I don't see how you can't give it to Snell. 21 wins on a Tampa Bay team that many predicted would be one of the worst in the game, including myself. I figured they would be the worst team in the American League. And here we are, Blake Snell, 21 wins in Tampa Bay, having a pretty nice season.
1.90 ERA. We're going to get to that in a second, but 1.90 ERA, 21 wins. I think he's got it locked up. I do, honestly. Over your NL wins leader, Mad Max Scherzer, who we talked about earlier in the show with 18.
Mad Max with that 300 strikeout milestone. And you mentioned he's done it before, but Scherzer, we would all agree, has been one of the dominant starters, most dominant starters over the last several years. There's no question about that, if not the best. But he would have to play 10 more seasons and strike out 326 and a half batters every single one of those 10 seasons to catch Nolan Ryan's all-time record. Only 10 more seasons of 327 strikeouts, Max.
That's good, right? He's not going to get to 327 this year.
No, and yeah.
Unless he strikes
possibly
out.
never again.
I mean, he could start Sunday, and he could strike out everybody. Right?
Yeah, he could.
Could get to 327.
He could. He'd have to throw probably 200 pitches to do it, but why not? It's the last game of the season. So yeah, Scherzer's your NL leader in wins with 18. Miles Mikolas with 17. John Lester.
The stash.
17. Yeah, he has one of the best stashes in the game. Aaron Nola, 16 wins. And Kyle Freeland, we mentioned him earlier, 16 wins for your Colorado Rockies. Good enough to be tied for fourth in the NL. So we talked about Blake Snell a little bit with his 21 wins and what he's been able to do this season with the Tampa Bay Rays, taking a huge step forward to looking like being one of the most elite pitchers in the game. I was going to say young pitchers, but he is one of the very best already. 1.90 ERA, good for first in the AL. Trevor Bauer, another guy just having a great year. 2.26 ERA. Justin Verlander, 2.6. Corey Kluber, another Cleveland Indian on the list with 2.83. And Garrett Cole, 2.92. Over to your NL ERA leaders, one of our favorite stories of the year, of course. We've talked about it over and over again, but how can you not with this unique scenario where you have a pitcher that has a 1.74 ERA but finishes with 10 wins on an awful New York Mets team, but 1.74 ERA, historic season with the quality stretch he's had, the streak of 23, 24 now, I believe, after today's game. What a year for him, and my pick for the NL Cy Young, and should be everybody's, but we shall see. Aaron Nola, the Philadelphia Phillies, 2.45, another one of the best young pitchers in the game. Max Scherzer, 2.53. Kyle Freeland, there he is again at 2.84 in pitching and cores too, putting up a 2.84 ERA. Very impressive year. And Mike Foltynewicz, 2.88.
Folty. He's having a good year too.
Yeah, great year for Atlanta. 2.88 ERA. Your AL saves leaders, the number one has been the same guy for months. Although he did lose out on the Edwin Diaz saves versus Baltimore Orioles games back pennant race. 56 saves, what a year for Edwin Diaz in Seattle. And you mentioned the run differential for Seattle. They're 15 games.
How much does he matter?
15 games above 500, and that proves to you that they have scored 37 less runs than their opponent, but have
won 15 more games than they lost.
More games. And Edwin Diaz, it's
56 of them. He's made an impact.
It's pretty easy to
of
connect those dots, and it tells me that Edwin Diaz is their MVP for sure. Craig Kimbrell, 42 saves, another great season for him. Blake Trinan, you might hear his name a little later on as well.
An outstanding year for Blake Trinan.
37 saves. Shane Green of Detroit with 32, and Chapman at 31, despite missing a month.
Wade Davis in the NL have been pacing all year in the NL saves lead. 41. Kenley Jansen with 37. Going to require some surgery in the offseason.
Yeah, very, very odd season for him with the start he had with the velocity being down and the concerns, and then he turned it around, and then he runs into some health problems, some heart issues that, like you said, are going to require some surgery following the season. Some scary stuff going on there. By all reports, it doesn't sound like it's an extremely critical thing. If he gets it taken care of, he should be okay. But yeah, that's scary stuff for sure.
The Dave just posted a big thing. I was trying to read it. The active leader in consecutive saves, Felipe Vasquez, hasn't blown a save in like 25 consecutive saves without blowing one. Something like that. I got to look that up. But Felipe Vasquez from the Pittsburgh Pirates with 36 saves. Brad Boxberger with 32. And Raisel Iglesias with 29 saves.
So I'm looking at Dave's comments, and he says there's 15 teams that have won 100 games the year after winning a World Series.
Okay.
So, you figure over the course of many, many years, that it doesn't happen too often. You would think it would happen more than that, but it's only happened 15 times since it looks like 1911. So
1990 Oakland Athletics, is that? Am I reading that right? That's the last time it was done before the Astros did it this year.
This year, yeah.
Wow,
looks like it.
Wow, look at the big brain on Brad. Thank you, Dave. I appreciate that. Moving on over to your AL WAR leader.
AL WAR leader, your likely MVP, Mookie Betts at 10.7. Mike Trout, 10.1. Matt Chapman with the phenomenal defense and pretty good bat, 8.4. Jose Ramirez at 7.6. And Jose Lindor, 7.5.
Francisco Lindor. 7.6, 7.5 out of those two guys from Cleveland. Cleveland is a dangerous team with Josh Donaldson on it, is it not? That is a dangerous team.
Yeah, if they can kind of catch lightning in a bottle with that, and even if it's just a few games or a few clutch hits in the postseason.
Play like Josh Donaldson for a few games. Could you do that?
Even give me a couple at-bats.
Could you be yourself for
a couple clutch at-bats?
A couple weeks here?
All you need in the postseason.
That's it. You're right. Your NL wins above replacement leader has been your NL wins above replacement leader for the entire season, and it's so good to see. And nobody's talking about him as a potential MVP candidate. You don't hear his name. You don't hear his name mentioned with Yelich or Baez or Carpenter or Goldie or Arenado or Freeman. You don't hear his name. Lorenzo Cain, your NL wins above replacement leader with 7 wins. Wouldn't even rank he wouldn't be in the top 5 in the AL, but 7 wins above replacement. A lot of good defense for Lorenzo Cain, but not to diminish what he's doing. He's hitting .311. But Christian Yelich on his heels was 6.6. Javi Baez was 6.1. Freddie Freeman was 6. And Manny Machado with 5.7. And that rounds out your NL wins above replacement leader, and that also rounds out our rundown. And our rundown was brought to you by...
This is brought to you by Nye VW out in Rome. Go see Nye VW. Our buddy Mike out there, the general manager. He will take care of you. Go see him. We did that awesome Battle of the Bats event with them, and we had a great time. And he's the guy to go see. So go to Nye VW out in Rome if you need a car, and they'll take care of you. Mention the D. All right, so we got a lot more show to go still. We're going to get into the 3 up, 3 down. We are going to do our 7th inning stretch, which will be ranking or presenting our lineups of the top October performers, in our opinion, in history. We'll be assembling a batting order and a lineup of the best of the best when it comes to postseason baseball. But right now,
I can't wait for that, honestly.
Right now,
we're going to have some different lists.
We got to talk about the Haps.
Yeah.
We got to talk about the Haps on the Haps.
We got to know what the Haps on the Haps is. But first, you know what we got to do? Let's talk about our boy.
Yeah, let's do that one first. The Field Report.
I want to talk about our
The
boy.
Haps on the Haps is coming soon, but we will talk about the Field Report.
Let's talk about my boy, Johnny Field.
Johnny. 0 for 2, 2 strikeouts, Johnny. Johnny Field, Minnesota Twins organization now. We've covered his journey around major and minor league baseball this season. Finishes out the season in the Minnesota Twins organization. And last time we gave his stats, I want to say he was at like minus 0.3 WAR. And it got slightly better for him. He put together a couple decent at-bats with the Minnesota Twins, but still only finished, or not quite finished, but is sitting at a .212 batting average, 7 home runs, 17 RBIs, 4 stolen bases, a .612 OPS. So he really did kind of turn it around towards the very end, but things were so bad for him before with that negative WAR that he has improved that. He is up to 0.0.
0.0?
0.0.
0.0.
And that's an improvement.
Oh,
you're doing
Mr.
good, Johnny.
Blutowski. Mr. Blutowski.
You're doing good, Johnny.
0.0.
There it is. Dedicated to you, Johnny.
0.0. Well, at least it's not negative WAR anymore, buddy.
Yeah, 0.0. It's good, right?
It is good.
So yeah, anyway, Johnny Field of the Minnesota Twins, bounced around a whole bunch. And how about Tampa Bay has Johnny Field on their roster, and they DFA him, they designate him for assignment, and he ends up going to the Cleveland Indians organization for a very, very brief period of time. And it's almost like that moment was when Tampa Bay just became a good team all of a sudden. Not saying Johnny Field was dragging them down or anything, but all of a sudden they became a winning team and just went on a crazy run. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, one of the better teams in baseball since Johnny Field left him.
So I will say he's batting .304 this month with a home run and an .826 OPS. Maybe that's September is Johnny Field's primetime month. He saves it all up for September.
Well, because that's when he usually gets the call up. It's after the Durham Bulls have lost. And,
right, yeah.
You know? So...
yeah, maybe there's something to that.
We're cheering for you, Johnny. I love you.
Mr. September.
No more fungus on your shower shoes, Johnny. And
Mr. September,
important.
Johnny Field.
So that's the Field Report, our boy Johnny Field.
That's the Field Report.
Hope you're tuning in tonight, Johnny. We love you. Probably a highly contested game. Tell Hildenberger there to throw like a strike in the ninth inning. That might help the Minnesota Twins, perhaps. Perhaps. And speaking of perhaps, we are going to get into the Haps on the Haps.
What's the Haps on the Haps?
The Haps on the Haps, where we talk about each week. We're going to get into Ian Happ and J Happ and give you the update on our boys. So what's the Haps on the Haps, SPG?
All right, so Ian Happ over the last week is 1 for 7 with a double, a stolen base, and 1 RBI. He's batting .143. Not good, right?
Not good. That's not good.
That's not good, right? So when they picked up Daniel Murphy, that kind of cut into his playing time a little bit, and Ben Zobrist has been, I want to say, unexpectedly good. He's a good, solid role player to have on the roster, but when you have Ben Zobrist on the top 5 in NL batting average, you didn't predict that was going to happen at the beginning of the season. If you're the Chicago Cubs, you probably expected Ian Happ would be becoming a regular player and a fixture in that lineup, and his future is very bright. There's no doubt about it. But so 1 for 7 over the last week, and over the last 2 weeks, he's 3 for 22, batting 136. So he's an unhappy Happ this week for sure.
Who's the unhappy Hap?
Ian Happ is the unhappy Happ.
Ian Happ.
The happy Happ is J Happ. Pitched very well for the New York Yankees over the last couple weeks. Over 11 innings pitched, he's struck out 13 guys. 0.82 ERA and a 1.27 WHIP. Very, very good pickup for them. You got to figure if the Yankees can get past the Oakland A's, he is going to be a key part of how the Yankees will perform and how they will fare in the playoffs. Got to get past that first game first, and maybe we get surprised. Maybe Aaron Boone surprises everybody and throws J Happ out there, but I don't see it given the right-handed bats in the lineup like we said. So J Happ is the happy Happ of the week, and that's the Haps on the Haps.
What's the haps on the haps? The haps, the haps, the haps, the haps.
The Haps on the Haps, brought to you by everybody here at Disruption Network.
That's right.
Just to let everybody know, tune in to Disruption Network. You can find it on Facebook, disruptionnetwork.net. But more importantly, on the Facebook, pay attention to the Facebook page over the next couple of weeks. Disruption Network is supporting, they're going pink. And we're going to support some breast cancer awareness month is coming up in October. So make sure that you look out for that. Also, look out for Trip Fest. Trip Fest is coming up soon.
It's going to be a fun night, man. Trip Fest, October 13th at the Jewish Community Center here in Utica, New York. It's going to be a fun event. It's the second annual Trip Fest. All sorts of great music. My band will be playing. The Crazy Fools will be there playing a set. Very much looking forward to that. There's going to be awesome music. Some of the other bands I'm very excited about. Taurus making a return after many, many years, making a reunion show out of it, I guess you'd say. Thunderwatt, those guys are awesome. I don't know if you've seen Thunderwatt, but they really do put on a great show. And,
they do.
There's a whole bunch of great tunes that night. Doughboys Barbecue is going to be there. October 13th.
The most important part that, for me anyway, that you didn't even mention, most important part, is the fact that there's going to be some of Captain Tripp's personal treasures sitting around available for purchase, but even just available to kind of rummage through and look through and take a look. And Captain Tripp's was a part of my life, and then the Rainforest Preserve itself, the bar, was a big part of our coming of age.
It was a staple, and it really set the roots for a lot of people, whether it be future venues, music venues, or future bands, or even people that just go in to enjoy music and see a band. It really kind of sparked a lot of interest, and it grew into a huge thing in kind of, it's kind of like you look at the NFL coaching trees. You see like the Bill Parcells, and then all of a sudden you can go Bill Belichick, and it just keeps growing. That's
Bill Walsh.
That's kind of how Captain Trips was, in my eyes, was kind of like that. So much stuff branched out of it, and we need to mention that it is, of course, in honor of the late great Captain Tripp, Vinny Morial, and. A whole bunch of cool stuff is going to be there to look through.
You will definitely see both of our faces at Trip Fest. Sean will be playing. I'll be there rummaging through some of the old treasures and hanging out with the D Crew. Speaking of the D Crew, check out all the great programming on Disruption Network.
So much good stuff.
We just came on after Wrestle Fandom Radio.
Yeah.
If you're a fan of wrestling, check these guys out. They really know their stuff. EC Radio every single day during the week with our boy Chicken and Anthony Z. Donaldson, your host.
It was a triple play today, right? We had EC Radio, Wrestle Fandom, and now the Baseline.
Yeah, and
content-filled day. Something for everybody.
There is something for everybody. And,
not just today, but every day.
We were just talking about quarterbacks and such. If you want your football fix, The D-line, tomorrow, 6 p.m. You can get your football fix
And
here on the D.
every single Thursday, 6 to 8
Ease,
p.m.
Beats, and Bizz, my boys, our hip-hop programming on Tuesday night. Check out Ease, Beats, and Bizz. And then Home Free, Adeline Van Dyke. You thinking about buying a house? Are you thinking about it? Are you thinking about selling a house?
Tune into that, because that is one heck of a resource to have at your fingertips, just to be able to write comments.
Home Free, Adeline Van Dyke.
And have Addie comment back to you and give you some feedback.
A member of the Property Sisters of the Mohawk Valley.
Great guest, too. And, I went through the whole process of selling and purchasing a home just about a year ago. Actually, a year ago tomorrow is when I closed on my house. I can't believe it's been a year, but, it's... I wish that I had that as a resource when I was going through it, and I had great help and great resources to guide me along the way. But man, the more information, the better, and they really do bring it on that show. Anything real estate related, and the guests that they bring in are top notch. And that goes to say about any of the shows here on the D. So check it out.
Check it out. Thank you to Disruption Network for sponsoring
What's
the Haps on the Haps.
What's the haps?
And Mile Walker for making that little loop there from Ease, Beats, and Bizz. You're my boy, man. So now we're going to get up, into some more original programming, original baseline programming. We're going to get up into 3 Up, 3 Down. And 3 Up, 3 Down, if you're not familiar with it, each week, SPG likes to give 3 players in fantasy baseball that you can kind of stay away from, and 3 players that you should go out and try to get. And this week, SPG is going to give his winners and losers for the year. So his 3 uppers.
So
and his 3 downers.
3 uppers, 3 downers. It's not going to be like an MVP type thing.
No, not at all.
Mookie Betts,
but surprises.
So 3 up.
Surprise. We're talking about surprises, right?
So these are going to be guys that were picked either mid at the earliest in drafts, late in drafts, or completely undrafted that were just waiver wire steals that are definitely helping lead,
I love it. Yes.
Lead some fantasy baseball teams to their respective championships. And the other list is going to be, essentially the busts of the year, in my opinion. And we've talked a lot about a few of these guys already. But I'm going to start with Blake Snell.
Better up!
Blake Snell, undrafted or extremely late draft pick in fantasy baseball drafts this past spring. And what more can you ask for out of a waiver wire pickup or just late round flyer than a 21-win, 1.90 ERA pitcher, 211 strikeouts, and 175 innings pitched? A whip under 1, just a Cy Young year. And I think he's going to win the Cy Young. And he definitely was a big part of a lot of teams having success this season, just not necessarily out of the blue because the pedigree was there. But as far as fantasy goes, kind of out of the blue because you got him for next to nothing back in March when you were picking your team. So Blake Snell, he gets a shout out as part of the 3 Up.
Safe.
Blake Snell is safe. My next one shares the same first name as Blake Snell, and that is Blake Trinan. And I could pretty much say everything I said about Blake Snell as a reliever version for Blake Trinan.
Such a good pick.
Because he was another guy that was he was kind of an afterthought.
I want to talk about, he's almost having an historic season. Only 37 saves. And the 56 certainly outshadows that. But he's almost having an historic season, Blake Trinan. But what do you got on Blake Trinan? And I agree with you completely.
So you figure Blake Trinan was at best maybe somebody's 3rd closer when they're picking closers, speculating on relievers and saves early in the season. You figure last year Blake Trinan was, he was, I believe, the closer for the Washington Nationals on opening day, and that bullpen ended up just being a rotating cast of mediocre relievers to the point where they had to trade for a closer. So they traded Blake Trinan to the Oakland A's in the deal that brought Sean Doolittle and Ryan Madsen back. Still a good trade for Washington. Sean Doolittle's great himself, but who would have expected Blake Trinan suddenly becomes one of the elite closers in the game, just like that. Just the next season, his first full season in Oakland. And he even struggled a little bit in Oakland last year after they acquired him. But not this year, because he is one of the very best closers in the game. His ERA is 0.79 this year.
0.79.
He's got 9 wins, 37 saves, like you mentioned, 98 strikeouts in just
how many wins?
9 wins. He's
9 wins and 37 saves.
He's 9-2 with
That's
37
a great
saves.
year with a .79 ERA.
0.79 ERA, a 0.8.
That's an historic year.
0.832 WHIP.
What's the Ks per 9 look like?
I don't have the actual K per 9, but he had 98 strikeouts, 79 innings. So
he's upside down
do
on
the
that
math,
too.
But yeah, he's way over. He's got more than we'll say 19 strikeouts more than innings.
Going to garner some Cy Young votes. Trinan is.
Yeah. Oh, you'll see him at the lower end of some ballots.
6, 7, 8.
Yep. Same with Edwin Diaz as well.
I think you're going to see him a little higher on some ballots.
It's possible.
I think that you are going to see him higher on some ballots. I think you could see Edwin Diaz finish 4th in the AL Cy Young. 4th.
It's very possible.
It's as high as I'll have him. But I think 4th.
So yeah, that's a closer that people grabbed that was a very shrewd, if not unexpected, success this season. Blake Trinan. So we got the 2 Blakes. And on to the 3rd of my 3 up. An MVP candidate, somebody we have mentioned a few times. That's got to be Javi Baez. Javi Baez, I looked it up the other day. In our league, in our draft, Javi Baez was picked in the 21st round of the draft. And here he is today on September 26th with 34 home runs, 110 RBIs, 21 stolen bases. He's got an OPS of 894. He's batting 294. Another steal to get somebody that late. And he probably went a little higher in some other drafts, but to get him in the 21st round, wow, what a steal. So Javi Baez, and that is your 3 up.
3 up. What you got down?
On to the down. All right, on to the down. And a couple of these guys are guys I drafted in our fantasy league.
You're sticking it to the Shockers?
I am, yeah. And
good.
To be fair, I did have Blake Snell at one point on my roster on the 3 up, but I got 2 of the guys on the 3 down list, and that's I got to start with Gary Sanchez. He's batting somewhere in the neighborhood of 150 right now, since he came back from the injury, maybe 3 weeks ago. He's batting about 150 since then. His overall average this year is 184. He still has 17 home runs, but man, so much more was expected out of Gary Sanchez this year. And for whatever reason, whether it was the injuries, whether it was some accusations of maybe being a lazy player, whatever those reasons may be, it resulted in a pretty disappointing season. A lot of people had extremely high hopes for Gary Sanchez this year, including me, and he didn't live up to it. Not saying he won't next year. I'm not saying give up on Gary Sanchez, but I am saying this year was extremely disappointing.
Who do you start? 1 game playoff.
At catcher,
Mm-hmm.
I'd start Gary Sanchez.
Because he's raking?
Yeah, he hit a home run the other night. He's heating up a little bit.
Starting to heat up. I shouldn't say raking.
Yeah, he's starting to heat up.
Raking compared to that 172 average.
It only took him 155 games, 57 games, but he's finally starting to hit the ball. But he definitely belongs on the
Yankees are
bust list.
somewhat intact going into the playoffs.
Right, Didi's is your big concern.
Yeah, somewhat intact going into the playoffs. Danny Echeverria with a home run last night. That's the way that I go with the Yankees, with Didi out and 1 game playoff looming and a playoff series looming. Ronald Torreyes doesn't even see the 25-man roster, in my opinion.
Agreed.
You could go with Gleyber Torres at short and Neil Walker at second.
Yeah, and Glaber's a little banged up right now too. He's missing.
But I see it as
consecutive games.
I see it as Glaber, Torres at second, a Danny Echeverria at short, and Neil Walker the first bat off the bench, and Luke Voigt starting at first base.
Yep,
that's the way I see it, and that's the way I see it. And we're going to talk more about the playoffs coming up here as soon as the playoff pictures are not so cloudy. Next Wednesday, actually, when we go, we'll be right around the wild card time. So where's everybody going to watch the wild card game? Anybody want to watch the baseline too? You make sure you tune in and watch the baseline too.
So Gary Sanchez is down. Josh Donaldson is my next pick. Another guy that could make a difference in the postseason.
You remember watching him throw?
Yeah,
the first
opening
couple weeks
day
of the season.
Opening day.
It was opening day.
I just remember looking at him thinking, what is wrong? And ironically enough, that wasn't the injury that kept him out for the 3 months. It was the calf problems. But yeah, what a disappointing season for him. 7 home runs. OPS at 756. Not expected. That's not what you were hoping for out of Josh Donaldson when you picked him in fantasy drafts back in the spring. So we got Gary Sanchez, Josh Donaldson, and my last one is a former MVP and regarded as one of the best players in the game. Chris Bryant just had a miserable season, and not too many people are talking about how miserable of a season Chris Bryant is having. He's batting .276. He's got 12 home runs this year, and that's in 377 at bats. He's been hurt, but 377 at bats and 12 home runs, 49 RBIs.
That's not good.
OPS of 834. So, yeah, when you picked him, it was second, early third round, and definitely
if not first round,
at the end of the first round, and yeah, he's been a fantasy
especially
baseball
with
boss.
that second base eligibility in fantasy. Especially with
that's Rizzo. Anthony Rizzo has the second.
Oh, I'm
base.
sorry.
Yeah. But Bryant,
Chris Bryant, yeah,
he's down.
My fault.
Yeah, I think he'll be all right though. He'll be fine next year. So that's your 3 up, 3 down. We're going to get into here in a few minutes our 7th inning stretch. We mentioned it that we are going to discuss our all-time October performer lineups that we put together, and we'll talk about some of those elite numbers that some of these guys put up, and some of them are eye-popping, and some of them are just incredible, and that we have to include some of these guys. But some of the choices were really tough because there are some guys that just had historic record-setting postseason numbers, but it's hard to fit all of them into a lineup.
I honestly found it more hard to not include so many. And to preface, the Yankees played an awful lot of postseason games across history. So I found it really hard to not include so many Yankees, given their ranks amongst the all-time playoff and postseason best. That being said, I kind of throttled myself and neglected to put all of them up there. As
did I. Dave is still going to call us a homer, but we left some pretty big names off our lists. So let's just jump right into it.
Let's jump into it. So just to let everybody know, this is how we kind of did it. We did it. We're going to do lineups. So I want to know who you got leading off, who you got batting second, who you got batting third.
Yeah.
That's the way it's going to go.
Yeah, and I threw just 3 outfielders. I didn't do specific left, center, right. But leading off on my lineup, the October All-Star team, somebody who is also known as Mr. November, I had to put Derek Jeter on there. The numbers, and you can say, yeah, he played a lot of postseason games, so a lot of this is accumulative. He played in 158 postseason games, Derek Jeter. That's a full season of games. He hit .308, 200 hits in the postseason, an .838 OPS, 32 doubles, 5 triples, 20 homers, 61 RBIs, 111 runs, 18 steals. But that's not the best part. The best part is just the clutch moments that he had in the postseason. Because like I said, he played a lot of games. A lot of those numbers are cumulative. But the clutch moments he had, the flip that he had in Oakland, ironically. Mr. November. He was the World Series MVP in 2000, and he won 5 championships. So I got Derek Jeter leading off. He is my starting shortstop, number 2, Derek Jeter, leading off.
You may or may not see him on my list in a second.
So I'll go into
maybe, but I'm saying I mean just as much as you, I'm sick of the overrated talk. Yesterday was the anniversary. Speaking of Derek Jeter, yesterday was the anniversary of that hit. His last game at Yankee Stadium, when he got up, he had the game-winning walk-off single. And so many places posted it. MLB Network posted it, and ESPN posted it. And the whole time I had to read all these comments about how much of an overrated player he was. And I'm sure that, that kind of grates on your nerves as well.
Don't be that fan.
Don't be that fan.
Don't be that fan.
So that is this week's Don't Be That Fan.
So you want to give your lead off?
Yeah, leading off.
Run down my lineup. Why don't you give your lead off?
Leading off playing left field. The all-time leader in leadoff home runs and stolen bases. Mr. Ricky Henderson. Now, Ricky got a chance to play in quite a few postseasons, Ricky. But in 1989, he had quite the special postseason. For the Oakland Athletics, 1989 World Championship team, but did play in 3 straight there for the Oakland Athletics in 88, 89, and 90. And then over to the Toronto Blue Jays as well. But in 1989, Ricky, where are you, Ricky? In 1989, Ricky Henderson hit 474. 474 with a 524 on base percentage.
Good, right?
An 895 slugging percentage and a 1419 OPS. He was the MVP of the ALCS that year. That was just the World Series in 1989. He was the MVP of the ALCS with a 400 batting average, a 609 on base percentage, a 1,000 slugging percentage, and a 1609 on base plus slugging OPS. 15 total bases in the ALCS that year in 23 plate appearances, 15 official at bats, 7 walks, 8 runs scored in a 6-game series. So, for me, we're talking leadoff hitters. Yes, he's an all-time great, but he's an all-time playoff great too. So, I got Ricky Henderson leading off, playing left field.
Dave says he is that fan, by the way.
Oh, Dave.
All right, batting second in SPG's October All-Star lineup is second baseman.
3,600 hits, Dave.
Second baseman Roberto Alomar is my starting second baseman. So Roberto Alomar, 58 postseason games, including 3 different teams. He won the ALCS MVP. He won 2 championships. He hit .313 with a .381 on-base percentage, 17 doubles, 33 RBIs, 32 runs scored, and 20 steals in 58 postseason games. And he was definitely in his prime. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer. In his prime, he was one of the most feared hitters in October when he would step to the plate. I remember just thinking, Roberto Alomar is going to get a hit every time he's up, seemingly. So I got him at second base and batting second.
So batting second behind Ricky Henderson, I'm going to go with the guy that has the most career plate appearances in the postseason, the most hits career in the postseason, the most doubles career in the postseason. I'm going to go with Derek Jeter. The guy with the most runs scored in the postseason.
There you go, Dave.
The most total bases in the postseason, the most triples in the postseason, the most doubles in the postseason. I understand that he played in a lot of games in his postseason career. But it didn't mean just because you're playing in the game that you couldn't suck, because maybe he could have sucked in all those games. But the fact is, when October and November came around, Derek Jeter shined. In his postseason career, Derek Jeter hit 308. That's a lot. So you want to say that he played so many games, and that's the reason that he might have such great compiling stats. What about the average stat? 308. Across all those games, he hit 300. Across 650 at-bats. It's more than a season. He hit 308. 374 on base. 465 slugging and 838 OPS. 200 hits in 650 ABs. So that's a 200-hit season in the postseason. That's a 308 batting average in the postseason. That's 5 World Series titles in the postseason. Derek Jeter can play shortstop for me any time of day. Yes, I understand I'm wearing that across my chest and this across my hat, but don't be that fan.
I'll turn this around right here.
Don't be that fan. Dave knows better than to call somebody with 3,600 hits overrated. So I know that you're not that guy, Dave. But all the numbers that I just named off to you, I mean, what else do you need? What else do you need, Dave? It's a postseason legend, Dave. I can't see what Dave is saying, so I hope it's something good.
He said peace out. I think he left.
He didn't leave.
He's thinking about Derek Jeter right now.
He didn't leave.
How much he loves Derek
He
Jeter.
didn't leave because he wants to see. You just had an Indian hitting second. There's no way he left. Maybe I got an Indian hitting somewhere on this list, Dave. Maybe I do. But you're not that fan. Don't say you're that fan. Derek Jeter's hitting second. Who you got hitting third, SP?
All right, I'm going to move this along a little bit so we can get through this here. So I got my DH hitting third, and that's Big Papi David Ortiz. I said Roberto Alomar was one of the most feared hitters in postseason. When I remember watching him come up to bat, it seemed like he would get a hit every time. Well, David Ortiz, you can put him in that same boat, and it seemed like he hit a home run or a double or some kind of clutch RBI in a key moment almost every single time I saw him in the postseason. And as a Yankees fan, he just destroyed the Yankees in the postseason. One of the most feared hitters of his generation. Big Papi, 289, 404 on base percentage, and a 543 slugging percentage, 22 doubles, 17 homers, 61 RBIs in 85 postseason games. So you can essentially double that to kind of prorate it towards a full season of regular season games. And you're looking at like 35 home runs and 120-something RBI, 45 doubles if you prorate that over a full season. And those just came in clutch moments. Led the Red Sox to many championships, and he's part of just a few people that can say that they helped break the curse and get Boston back to being a perennial contender with some World Series banners in Fenway Park. So I got Big Papi David Ortiz. As much as I did not enjoy watching him destroy the Yankees over the years, he deserves a spot on this team. He's my DH, and he's hitting third.
My number 3 hitter, I mean, this is going to be tough. This is going to be especially tough on Dave because I go 4 in a row here, and it's kind of sad, but I could have gone 9. I honestly could have gone 9. But my number 3 hitter here is I'm going to go with Lou Gehrig. And of all the Yankees that I have on my list, if you need me to come up with a second and third option here for all of the Yankees that I have on my list, and I can only keep one, Lou Gehrig is the one that I'm keeping. Now, back in the day when Lou Gehrig played, the World Series was the postseason. That was the postseason. There wasn't an ALCS. There wasn't a division series. The World Series was the postseason. This is Lou Gehrig's postseason career. 348, 464, 435, 899 OPS. 308, 438, 769, 1207 OPS. That's the 1927 Murderers Row Yankees. 1928, they also won the ring. In the World Series, Lou Gehrig is 545, 706, 1727 slugging percentage. Good for a 2.433 on base plus slugging. 19 total bases in 17 plate appearances. 11 official at-bats, 19 total bases. 5 runs scored, 6 hits, a double, 4 home runs, 9 RBIs, and 6 walks. 2.433 in a single World Series. But for his career, across 7 World Series, a 12.14 OPS, a 483 on-base percentage, and a 361 average. 35 RBI and 10 home run and 119 at-bats. Lou Gehrig is hitting third on my team all day. So I got the Iron Horse hitting third. Who you got hitting cleanup on your all-time dream team, October team?
All right, cleanup, I had to go with the Babe. I had to go Babe Ruth hitting cleanup on my all-time postseason performer roster and lineup. And he won 7 championships. He hit 326, 470 on base, 744 slugging percentage with 15 homers and 33 RBIs in 41 World Series games. That's in 41 games. Incredible numbers. I mean, we all know about Babe Ruth. We all know just how ridiculous he was amongst his peers. And if I'm taking an outfielder in an all-time list here and plugging him into my cleanup spot, that's Babe Ruth. So I got the Babe hitting fourth in the outfield.
Hitting fourth for my team, I'm going to go with another Yankee. I'm sorry.
And you know what? We jokingly said,
I don't even want to.
We jokingly said ahead of time too that, okay, let's come up with the all-time.
I throttled it.
The all-time list here, and we both said, all right, 1998 Yankees, we're done.
I mean, we're going. All right, we're hearkening back to another time here where the World Series was the postseason. The all-time leader in World Series home runs, and at the time of his retirement, the all-time leader in postseason home runs, 18. I'm going to play number 7 in center field on my team. I got Mickey Mantle playing center field and hitting cleanup on my team. 18 homers, 40 RBIs, and 273 PAs. 257 batting average across his career, but some of these wins here are startling. Startling. A 400 batting average, 545 OBP, and 800 slugging percentage. Good for a 1345 OPS in the 1960 series. And a loss against the Pittsburgh Pirates. 1,061, 1,067, 1,003, and 1,258 in 5 other World Series across his career. 43 walks and 59 runs scored in 65 games. Mickey Mantle hitting fourth on my team.
I got my first baseman next, hitting 5th. And although I wanted to put Lou Gehrig in there for all of the points that you mentioned, I figured I'd break away from the mold just a little bit because I didn't want to make this even more of a Yankees heavy segment than it was, just because of the nature of a team
I
winning.
mean, we're talking about the postseason.
A team that has won 27 World Championships.
Series.
You're going to see a lot of their names on these lists.
It's really tough to leave them off.
Lou Gehrig deserves a spot on that list, but I decided to go with Albert Pujols as
La
my
Maquina.
fifth hitter and starting at first base.
I'm totally with that.
He's one of only 3 players that have hit a 3-home run game in the World Series. He won 2 championships with the Cardinals. 323, 431, 599 slash line. 18 doubles, 19 home runs, 54 RBIs in 77 games. And here's the thing for me that was the tiebreaker on Gehrig, and you could probably say the same for Gehrig because I didn't look up the numbers, but I would be very surprised if it wasn't the same for him as well. But he walked more times than he struck out in the postseason. 49 walks to 40 strikeouts in 77 games. That is just ridiculously clutch.
Lou Gehrig in 34 games walked 26 times and only struck out 17.
Yeah, so there you go. And I figured it would be a similar stat line there. But 49 walks to 40 strikeouts in 77 games is incredible. So, yeah, Albert Pujols hitting 5th, starting first base.
La Maquina. He was close for me. He was close. Rounding out my Yankees kind of thing here, I guess. I'm going to go with a guy that, not necessarily just famous for being a Yankee. I'm going to go with Reginald Martinez Jackson. Reggie Jackson.
We'll bundle this one then because Reggie's hitting 6 for me.
Over his career, the 1973 World Series MVP, 310, 355, 586, good for a 941 OPS. And that was with a home run and 6 RBIs and 9 hits across 31 PAs in 7 games of the 73 series. So MVP of that series there. And he was MVP of another series in 1977 against the LA Dodgers, where he hit 450, a 542 on-base percentage, a 1250 slugging percentage, and a 1792 OPS in that series right there.
And of course, there's the iconic
good for the moniker.
Of course, there's the iconic 3-home run game in the World Series.
Mr. October.
I said Pujols had accomplished it. There actually were 4 people that accomplished it. It's Reggie Jackson, Pujols, Babe Ruth, and do you have any idea who the last one is? So you got Reggie, Pujols, Babe Ruth. There's one more guy.
Somebody recently.
There's one more guy that has ever hit 3 home runs in a World Series game.
No idea.
Pablo Sandoval.
There you go.
Is your 4th guy. He is not on my list, though.
He had a couple good postseasons.
He did. He really did. So, yeah, Reggie, like you said, numbers are incredible. 391 average, 424 on base, 655 slugging. Just ridiculous. Even had 14 stolen bases, too. Throw those in the mix. So, yeah, Reggie's got my 6th spot, and you got him hitting in the 5-hole.
Yeah, I'm hitting the 5-hole. So good for my 6th spot is somebody that you had hitting a little higher in the order. My DH. Reggie's playing right field, by the way. Number 7's playing center field. Come on.
Yeah.
But my DH, David Ortiz. Somebody you had hitting a little higher in the order. How can you argue with David Ortiz being your DH for the playoffs? It's kind of a no-brainer. Putting the team on his back and absolutely carrying them. You already gave all the stats earlier, so David Ortiz hitting 6 for me. Who you got hitting 7th?
Yeah, and Ortiz might have been the biggest no-brainer of all. Compared to the competition, the other players you can throw in there as potential. And it's not like we can just throw anybody we left off the list into the DH spot. This is strictly somebody who was a DH and did all of his damage from the DH spot for his team. So I have, 3rd base. Batting 7th, Mr. Kansas City Royal, Mr. Pine Tar, George Brett, I have at third base. This was a little bit of a difficult decision for me. There's some other pretty good choices out there. And you could even include, it's funny to say, but you could include Pablo Sandoval in the discussion, really. But I went with George Brett. 337 average, 397 on base percentage, and a 627 slugging percentage. 8 doubles, 5 triples, 10 home runs, 23 RBIs, 30 runs in just 43 postseason games. He's on my team, because why not? He's George freaking Brett. Put him on your October team as your third baseman, and there he is in my lineup, hitting out of the 7th spot.
My number 7, playing third base, a member of the Hall of Fame, 417 PAs, 338 at-bats, 287, 409 on-base percentage. In all those years of making the playoffs, 13 postseason home runs, 47 postseason RBIs, the 1995 World Series champion. Of course, I'm talking about Chipper Jones. Chipper Jones going to play third base for me going into the postseason. That's the guy I want.
Good choice right there, too.
That's the guy I want. A 409 career on base percentage, 58 career runs scored. 58. 93 games. He's scoring a run every other game. Chipper Jones crossing the plate. That's my guy. One of the best switch hitters in the history of the game. I got Chipper Jones. Hit number 7.
Speaking of one of the best switch hitters, this is my final outfield spot. And I've got Carlos Beltran.
Wow.
I'm going to throw Carlos Beltran in. And he might be a little bit of an unpopular choice, and it might be one of those recent memory things of me actually watching most of what he had accomplished in the playoffs. But I'm going to throw Carlos Beltran in my lineup, hitting 8th, and talk about clutch in some of these postseason games he played in. When all was said and done, he hit 323 with a 432 on base, 646 slugging, 16 home runs, 13 doubles, 41 RBIs, 45 runs, 11 steals in just 55 games. And like I said, he had so many clutch hits. I think of that one postseason with Houston that one year when the Royals traded him before he ended up signing that contract with the Mets. And what a just phenomenal postseason that was. And that wasn't the only one. I mean, that was the most notable and the most famous. But he was a damn good postseason player. And I'm happy that he finally won his World Series ring last year with the Houston Astros. Before retiring. And it's funny, he was actually in the supposedly in the running to be the Yankees manager this season, if you remember back when they were doing their managerial search.
I do.
That was a name that came up a few times. Carlos Beltran, he got his ring and he put up some great numbers. I'm giving him a spot on my team. And I got to give one quick honorable mention in the outfield. That he did not make my team because he only appeared in 3 postseasons. But how about Hank Aaron with 362 average, 405 on base, 710 slugging, 6 homers, 16 RBIs in 17 games.
Would you expect anything less?
Of course not. 362 average. So yeah, Hank Aaron gets an honorable mention. If he had played in another postseason or two, he's probably on my list. So yeah, Beltran hitting 8th.
Hitting 8th for my team. It's a tough call. When you look at the 1991 World Series, won by the Minnesota Twins, there was a man that stuck out at second base. Not for the Twins, for the Braves. In one October, this formidable man playing second base for the Braves was able to go 417, 462, 708, good for an 1170 OPS. 1170 in the World Series.
It's good, right?
That's good, right? 3 triples, 4 RBIs, 10 hits. And had the Braves won, would have been named MVP. Talking about the one and only Mr. Mark Lemke. But I couldn't go with Mark Lemke because then I delved into the stats a little more. And I saw that Paul Molitor, Hall of Famer Paul Molitor, had quite a couple good Octobers.
Yeah, he played a little bit of second base, primarily third baseman, but I'll give that to you.
As a second baseman, had a great postseason and a win with the Brewers. So I'm gonna go playing second base. Paul Molitor. What do you think about that? You like that?
Yeah, it's a good one. I mean, how can you say anything
in a loss in the 82 series, in a loss to St. Louis?
Ironically, teammates with the guy I picked for my second.
355, 394, 3 RBI in a loss to St. Louis in 7 games. I'm going to go with Paul Molitor. I should have gone with the Lemmer. You know what? Fuck it. We're going with the Lemmer. Paul Molitor, you've had your time to shine in Cooperstown and all over the place, and you got a World Series ring or a couple. I'm going to go with the Lemmer.
Mark
the Lemmer.
Lemke of Whitesboro, New York, and
that's good, right?
Alumnus of Notre Dame High School.
3 triples in 1 World Series
here in Utica, New
and
York.
1170 OPS in the World Series. That's good, right?
He did also hit into the last out of the 1996 World Series. But that's not to take away from, I guess you could say it was out of the blue, really, at the time. He was a solid player. Nobody expected him to become almost a cult hero, a postseason hero back then.
I'm going with the Lemmer.
And he really did. And we had a special connection to it because he's a hometown guy.
Molitor, you're getting crossed out.
He's a hometown guy here from the Utica, New York area, Whitesboro, New York specifically.
And the Lemmer is in.
And
late inning scratch.
In. Look at that. Paul Molitor has been scratched due to not appearing in enough second base games, we'll say.
And the Lemmer, you're in.
So the Lemmer gets a spot.
We got no room for Jeff Blauser, Lemmer. No room.
No.
But we got Chipper and Mark Lemke.
Leave Jeff Blauser at home.
If you thought that the 90s Braves were absent on this list, now you got the Lemmer and you got the Chipper. And maybe I got somebody else on my list. Who knows? Who you got hitting 9th and rounding it out for you?
So I got a guy that we had number 1 on one of our 7th inning stretches this year when we did the top characters by our own definition in baseball. And that's Yogi Berra. He won 10 championships. Got on base at a 359 clip. 10 doubles, 12 homers, 39 RBIs in 75 games, along with just the almost underrated work that a catcher puts in behind the plate. And he was integral to winning those championships, whether it was clubhouse charisma and being a team leader, keeping the team loose. Yogi Berra won 10 World Series. 10 of them. So I got Yogi hitting 9th in my lineup, which is crazy to even think about having a lineup where Yogi Berra is hitting 9th. He's his 359 on base clip, I think, works perfectly in the 9 hole. You get on base from that 9 spot, and then you're back around to Derek Jeter, Roberto Alomar, and David Ortiz right behind him to round out my lineup.
What insurance is that, Yogi?
The one you really need to have. If you don't have it, that's why you need it.
Need what?
Well, if you get hurt and miss work, it won't hurt to miss work.
Yogi Berra.
So that's the end of my lineup, but it's not over till it's over, and we got a little bit more to go here because you got to do your 9th spot, and we got to.
So catching for me, I got to have a catcher, and I wanted to go with Yogi too. I mean, 10 rings is 10 rings, but then I looked at some stats from from recently, I want to look at a guy that has a couple World Series wins and a really excellent postseason resume here. And that's, I'm going to go with Yadi Molina. Now, Yadi Molina, in the year that they won the World Series in 2011 and the year that they won the World Series in 2006. 2006, 412, 500, 529, 1,029 in 2006. 2011, he's 333, 414, 417 for 830. He carried them to both of those rings, folks. So, well, I mean, with Pujols, too. Who sits on your list? But Yadier Molina is catching for my team going into the postseason. Nothing more to be said about Yadi.
So you just mentioned Pujols too, and I think those are the only active players on our lists. Yadi and Pujols,
both from the same team, from the same type thing. But no lineup is complete. No game is complete unless we have some pitchers.
Got to have a pitcher to start the game, right?
So who's going up against my lineup, SPG?
I got Sandy Koufax.
Ooh.
If I'm picking one starter based on the numbers, I'm going with Koufax. He ended up winning 2 World Series MVPs. 0.95 ERA, 0.83 whip, 61 strikeouts. Those are just his numbers in the World Series. And he had 4 complete games and 2 shutouts. Back then, the World Series was the postseason, like you said. 4 complete games and 2 shutouts in the World Series. Just incredible numbers. He's my ace. I got Koufax starting. I want to throw the lefty in there.
So many honorable mentions that I could probably dole out to who I would have starting my game. Randy Johnson indeed comes to mind, especially with the utter dominance that he displayed when he was a member of the Houston Astros in that one postseason, and then winning 3 games in a single World Series for the Arizona Diamondbacks. So Randy Johnson was really close for me, but I'm going to go with a guy that did it over 14 seasons in the postseason. Seeing multiple World Series, multiple postseasons, obviously, as I have said. 15-4, 2.67 in 209 innings pitched. 4 saves, 2 complete games, a very famous complete game loss, 199 strikeouts in 209 innings pitched across a whole postseason career. I'm going to go with John Smoltz. John Smoltz. October start. I got to have an October start. I got to have a bulldog out there. I got to have somebody who's going to bear down, throw strikes, get ahead. Against the lineup that you just presented, I want John Smoltz. Who do you got closing the game out? I'm pretty sure we probably
a feeling that we are in agreement on.
Are going to be in agreement
on this one.
I
hope Dave's tuning in because maybe he would not disagree with this one, despite it being a longtime Yankee. So Mariano Rivera is obviously our pick to be our closer, and we did see, much to our dismay, it not go so well for Mariano in the World Series. We saw him come
twice.
A couple times, yep. And we saw him come in and be on the losing end, which was just so surprising to see as a Yankees fan back then, especially. But his entire body of work is ridiculous. Like
over 141 innings pitched,
which is 7th all time in postseason
as a reliever.
As a reliever, 7th all time.
Over 141 innings pitched. He has a WHIP of .759, an ERA of .70.
Yeah,
889 winning percentage. He's 8-1,
110 strikeouts
with 42 saves,
110 strikeouts and only 17 unintentional walks to those 110 strikeouts. 42 games saved in 47 chances, 5 championships, and an ALCS MVP and a World Series MVP. So Mariano, that's the obvious pick, and that is no homer pick, Dave. That is just how it is.
It is. I mean, there's no arguing that one. There's really no arguing any of the Yankees that we put in there. There isn't. So anyway, that's the 7th inning stretch. I'm glad to see we had kind of different lists. Maybe a little homerism going on, but that's okay.
It's time for the 7th
we missed on this, but
stretch.
I like this part. We got to stretch it. Sorry, Dave. Sorry you didn't like it. Lots of Yankees polluting all this postseason talk.
That's Yankee overload.
Go figure. So we're getting to the close of the show here. We got to wind it on up, and really all there is left to do is throw somebody out. We got to throw somebody out of the baseline. So I know who I'm throwing out. Now, I've already thrown him out once this year, but now he's permanently out. Permanently out. You've managed to get yourself thrown out permanently, Keith Hernandez. Last night I'm watching the Mets.
I'd forgotten about
and the
that.
Braves.
Thank you for bringing that up.
No, we've already discussed Keith Hernandez and his awful, horrendous take on Jose Urena hitting Ronald Acuna Jr. Now, last night Ronald Acuna Jr. gets hit and ended up being on the shoulder, but it was really up and in, up towards the flap on his helmet. He gets one buzzed up and in, and wasn't on purpose. This one wasn't. But rather than just say it wasn't on purpose and let it go, Keith Hernandez decided to dissect every last ounce of Ronald Acuna Jr.'s approach at the plate.
He keeps digging that hole deeper and deeper. And
he dives over the plate.
I don't know what he has against.
He stands with a closed stance. He goes to swing and he triggers towards the pitcher. That ball sailed up and in on him, yes, but he's crowding the plate. Well, you can see that that's the exact same thing that happened with Urena. No, Keith Hernandez, it's not the exact same thing that happened with Urena. I will give you the fact that last night was not on purpose. Not on purpose at all. But last night was not Acuna's fault. Just as the Jose Urena incident was not Acuna's fault. Please stop trying to justify your blatant disregard for the fact that Jose Urena was wrong, Ronald Acuna was not wrong, and you are just a sad, pathetic Mets homer. Keith Hernandez, dude.
You're out of here!
You are out.
You're out of the baseline!
Out of the baseline. Permanently out of the baseline. Along with the Mets and the Orioles, you can stay there with all the PD users and the wife beaters. That's where you can stay. Because you just have the most horrendous, old school takes on the game. Keith Hernandez. And, I mean, your broadcast is awful to listen to. Awful. You're awful. You're out of the baseline, Keith Hernandez. SPG, what do you got?
I'm just going to throw Keith Hernandez out, too, because, yeah, he just keeps digging that hole deeper, like I said, and he doesn't know when to stop. And I don't know why he thinks it's a good idea to just overly dissect Ronald Acuna's batting stance and basically blame him for getting plunked a couple times, especially that first time with Urena. I don't understand it because he's caught so much backlash for it the first time around, and here he is still defending it and saying it's okay to go plunk him. In that first time around with Urena, with him leading off the game and him going for a record for leadoff home runs, it was obviously intentional. And for Keith Hernandez to defend that on the first pitch of the game is just ridiculous. And then for this to happen again and for us to be going down this same road again, I mean, how can you not have learned something from that first time around? So, yeah, Keith Hernandez, you're out of here.
You're out of the baseline. You're out. You're out of here.
Keith Hernandez, you've been thrown out like 7 times tonight. Enough of the awful takes. John Heyman, you can have it too. I'm throwing you out again.
You're out of the baseline.
Terrible take, and now you've infected the whole populace out there. Everybody thinks Ohtani should be the Rookie of the Year. Not going to happen. Not even close. And speaking of not even close, that's it. We're done.
That's it. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
We're going to see everybody next week.
Dave, thank you for tuning in, as always, even though we kind of triggered you a little bit today, it looks like. But that's kind of sometimes is, in a roundabout way, one of our hopes. We'd like to get you fired up. We want to hear your feedback, even if we don't like it. But hey, everybody, enjoy the postseason. We'll be back probably next week. I'm thinking. I don't know what day yet, but we will be back soon in the heat of the MLB playoff beginnings, wild card, ALDS. Can't wait to talk about it. Can't wait to see what happens in the NL. So much to look forward to in baseball still, even after several months of this. Now it really gets fun. So stay tuned. We will be covering that and awards and all that other good stuff that comes along with this part of the year. So we are out of here.
See you next week, everybody.
See you next time.
Let's face it, nobody likes to move. All the packing, unpacking, lifting, upstairs, downstairs, and broking everything, including your back. Let the professionals at EJA Moving Company take all the stress and pain out of your move. Competitively priced moving, relocation services, office moves, and complete packing and unpacking services. They work with everybody to make it simple and easy for you to move and relocate. Call EJA Moving Company at 315-335-0516. When it's time to relocate, have EJA Moving do all the work for you. Hit them up online, ejamoving.com.
Hey, Disruption Network. This is Mike Sacco, the general manager at Nye Volkswagen of Rome. If you don't know me by name, it's only because you have not received the best deal. There's only one reason to leave Utica, and that's to come see me in Rome and get the best deal on your next new, pre-owned, or certified VW. Mention that you heard this ad from Disruption Network and receive $250 off your next vehicle purchase. You'll know why our customers say, I love my Nye VW. Come see us at 5865 Rome Taberg Road in Rome, or visit us online at nyvwofrome.com.
Join us Saturday, October 13th as Disruption Network and Doughboy Barbecue presents Trip Fest 2 at the Jewish Community Center, 2310 Oneida Street in Utica. A night to pay homage to Vinny, Captain Trip Moriel. Utica icon, yo! Come pick through all Captain Trip's personal treasures, local artist display, food from Doughboy Barbecue, beer, wine, and live music. Bands include, after a 24-year hiatus, the return of Torrance, Kate Devin, the Crazy